Hello? Okay. Yeah, that.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Okay, because I need to sign in.
Everybody.
I need to sign in somewhere.
All right, everybody, we got a CE class going on. Appreciate everybody being on this morning. We'll get started here in just a few minutes. I always like to give people a little bit of time to get on and ready to go. So we will get started here in just a few. All right, good morning, everybody. It's 10. We're still going to give it a few minutes for some people to get here. Everybody usually has technical things. And I know when I was trying to hop on this morning, Zoom felt it necessary to download this huge update. So we're going to get started here in probably about 5 minutes or so. In the chat, please be sure to put your name, your license number, and your contact information. That's email and phone. That's how we get. That's how we keep track of who attended the class when it's time to issue CE credit. We'll also, if for some reason you get kicked offline when you hop back on, please re-enter that information. We understand that technical things will happen, obviously, with these Zoom meetings. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to share in the chat a link where you can download the slides if you want to go ahead and download it or follow along that way. You can certainly download it later or handle it later, but a lot of people like to do that. So I'm going to put that in the chat. I'll put it in a few more times as well, but that should take you to the course slides and information we're going to be going over today. Additionally, I am not Dana Sparks, in case you can't tell. Obviously, we use her information and her login to do these classes. But But my name is Jay.Alexander. Again, appreciate everybody being here. And like I said, we will get started here in just a few minutes. All right, everybody. Speaking of technical issues, my internet just crashed and came back. So hopefully we'll be in good shape. We'll go ahead and get started. I'm sure there'll be some people kind of hopping in as we go. Remember, please, if you haven't already, in the chat box, go ahead and put your name and contact information and license number. So that's name, license number, email, and phone. Like I said, that is how we take roster and make sure we get the CE credits where they're supposed to be. And then I'll post the link again. The course material is available if I can get to the chat box. My computer's still waking up from the glitch here, so I apologize for that. Gotta love technology. All right, go. All right, so got the link back in there. All right, guys. So again, my name is Jay.Alexander. I'm a loan officer with Homestar Financial. We've been a partner with Maximum One for years and years, and I've been a partner with their school here. So I enjoy teaching these classes. Hopefully we'll have some fun today and everybody will learn something. We try to make, my goal is always to make CE as exciting as it can possibly be. So we'll see how we do. The class today is our class we recently put together called Secrets to Success with Buyers. We definitely found that in this market, I'm sure you know, it's can be quite challenging to work with buyers. And so we are, going to hopefully give you some tools and some tricks, certainly some things that you probably already know about, hopefully some things that maybe you're not as familiar with or haven't really thought about to maybe tip the scales in our buyers' favors in this market. Karen Pittman, it's been a minute. Hope you're doing well. It's good to see you on the class. So guys, I'm going to do my best to keep an eye on the chat as we go through the class here. So definitely, as you have questions, please feel free to type it in and chime in as we go. And then I'm going to see if my computer, it crashed last time when I tried to share my screen. So let's see what happens here. All right, here we go, guys. In the chat box, can you see the Secrets to Success with Buyers PowerPoint slide? All right, we got some yeses coming through. Wonderful. So it looks like we're in good shape there. And looks like we got people in the chat box, which is always good. Hopefully we got some Braves fans in here. It's been fun watching the last few games anyway, if you keep up with baseball or keep up with the Braves. So there's some information that's outside of CE. So there we go. But anyway, like I said, guys, my name is Jay.Alexander. I'm a loan officer with Homestar. Been in the mortgage business for over 15 years. I have a wonderful wife and 3 wonderful boys. I did graduate from Georgia Tech. I have a chemical and biomolecular engineering degree. Not sure there's any other loan officers in the industry that can size a distillation column for you, but I can certainly do it. Don't know how it helps you, but that's my background. I run the music at my church and I help coach my kids' ball team. And you know my entire life there in one slide. Don't really have a lot of time to do much else other than what you see on that slide right there. But I'm glad you're here this morning. We're going to get into the class today. The goal for the class is, first of all, we want to discuss some different ways, some clever ways to maybe remove contingencies on our offers. I think we all know in this market, even in spite of the fact that it is starting to shift a little bit, it's still extremely competitive, still very, very low inventory. And a lot of times getting the contingencies down and off and as little or as small as possible can help tip the scales and give our buyer clients that we're working with a more favorable opportunity to actually get a home under contract. There we go. Also want to talk about the Ribbon program. Hopefully you've heard of Ribbon by now. If not, you're in the right place. If you have heard of Ribbon but have questions about it, want to know how to use it, we're having lots and lots of success with the Ribbon program. We'll talk about all the benefits and how it can help your buyers, but also talk about the downside and some of the moving parts and what I think you need to know just as an agent to be able to inform a customer. Certainly, I think ultimately, and I think you'll see by the end of this class, it's certainly on the loan officer to explain the Ribbon program and kind of what the risks are associated to with our customers. But it is a fantastic program. It's a great way to get people under contract and make things happen. Also want to introduce to you, so that's like the first half of the class. We'll be working with more of the traditional buyers, first-time home buyers, people trying to get into a home in this market. In addition to that, after we take a break, I'm going to introduce a completely different business plan to market to maybe high-end or higher net wealth buyers, more of your investor clients. I've got some investors I'm working with that are shifting all of their real estate investments right now. We're helping them with that. So we'll kind of talk about that and how all that works. And maybe that'll open up some opportunities that are out there that you weren't aware of. And then the goal is that my personal goal is that you'll leave today's class with one action item to help get a buyer under contract. All right. Because that's the name of the game, right? We get contracts. The goal is to have one action item where you can move forward with and execute and grow your business and make something better, okay? So moving right along, let's kind of talk about what it is like in today's market. I think we have redefined normal, but in your mind, think back, real estate, say before coronavirus, 2018, 2019, what is normal? What was normal then versus what is normal now? If you're working with buyers, how many buyers are how many homes do you have to look at to try to get something under contract? How are you running into other buyers at the homes you go to? I'm hearing that a lot. It's like, oh wow, we're sandwiched in and there's three other listing appointments and there's 2 people before us and 1 after, and we're waiting in the car to get in. How many offers are you having to make to get a home under contract? We've been adapting to this market for a while now. It's just the market we're in. It's part of what we're dealing with. Some data, I like to put data with stuff and just say, oh, the market's crazy. Well, there's data out there. How about that? Can people hear me now? Okay. For some reason, guys, my system here magically transferred to some hands-free headset. The problem is I don't have a hands-free headset that I'm aware of. So maybe it's the Illuminati or somebody in the government doesn't want us giving you the National Association of Realtors sales report. Who knows? Anyway, sorry about that. Let's see if we can jump back in. Gotta love technology, guys. I apologize for that. Let's see here. Let's go back to this and share, and there we go. All right. So NAR sales report, here we go. So I've got data here from January and March. Obviously, we know the market changes really quick, but kind of put some data with what's going on in this market. From the January existing home sales report, some of the key highlights that I stripped from the report: in 2021, existing home sales were 6.12 million, which was 8.5% increase from the prior year and one of the highest levels since 2006. At the end of December, the inventory of unsold existing homes fell to an all-time low of 910,000 units. So that was nationally, there were less than 1 million homes for sale at the end of December of last year. It effectively is 1.5 months of inventory. And again, we're setting records with all-time low inventory. And we know this. We know how difficult it is to find a home, get a home under contract in this market. Then I love this last bullet point. In December, existing home sales on a seasonally adjusted rate slowed to 6.18 million, a 4.6 decrease from November. I don't know if you paid attention, but in the media and online, CNN, Fox News, all that kind of stuff, they grabbed that one snippet of that one headline, a 4.6% decrease, and started blasting out data about the housing market's crashing and home sales are slowing down and stuff like that. The truth is in the other bullet points, there just wasn't any inventory. Had there been more homes for sale, we would have sold all those and had a record sales month back then. It's just that we sold everything that was available and there really wasn't anything around. 1.8 months is an unbelievably low number of inventory. Does everybody know what a stable market is considered? How many months of inventory we're supposed to have in a stable market? Any guesses by chance? That's exactly right, guys. 6 months. 6 months of inventory is considered stable. What that means is it should take, on average, between 3 and 6 months to sell a home, to market it and get it sold. And we're in a market now where if the home sits for more than 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we're still wondering, well, what's wrong with it? Is it dilapidated? Is there mold? I mean, it is still crazy. Yes, the market has, I think, slowed down a little bit. We'll talk more about that here in a minute with some of the interest rate effects and things like that going on in the market. But at the end of the day, these numbers are just, it's just absolutely crazy. So this, like I said, this is from the January report. If we go move forward to the March report, and the next time I teach this class, we'll probably pull in data from the June report. It's not out yet. The March report, again, reported that existing home sales fell for the second straight month. So we're selling less houses. The inventory of unsold homes increased to a whopping 950,000. So we had record low inventory in the January report. We had a new record low in the February report. And then in March, it actually went up to 950,000 units by the end of March. About 2 months worth of inventory. The reason the supply went up is because you had less buyers in the market, people starting to bow out as we're starting to see interest rates go up. And then the median home sales price was up 15% from a year ago. So 15% appreciation, right? Totally classic supply and demand, not many homes, more buyers than sellers, prices go up. So, and then specifically like this one data point right here, it marked 121 consecutive months of year-over-year increases in home prices, the longest running street home record. The reason that I put that out there, guys, I don't think we're going to hit that, this month or next month, but probably this year, maybe beginning of next year, we will get a data point in this home sales report that says home prices were stagnant or went down. And everybody's going to report that and blast all over the news. And that client that you have, it's like, oh, I'm just waiting on the market to crash. I'm telling you it's going to happen. They're all going to feel justified with that one data point. Remember, whenever we get that data point, we will put an end to an all-time streak record of year-over-year increases in home prices, okay? So that will happen eventually. It's inevitable that home prices can't just continually keep rising at 5 and 10 and 15% year-over-year. But just know that the demand is still very much intact. The inventory is not there. Nothing would lead us to think that we are pushing towards a crash and a collapse of home prices like we saw back in 2008, 2009, the Great Recession that it's now known as. So just heads up on that. But Economics 101, again, we've got high demand, low supply, which leads to higher prices. We have not necessarily all-time low inventory now because we have seen inventory finally start to increase a little bit in the last couple of months. We have inflation pressures that it's no longer expected. It actually is driving up rates and costs. We're feeling that, I think, at the grocery store and at the gas pump and everywhere you turn around, things are a little bit more expensive. So working with the buyers in today's market, the best way I think to sum it up is to say it kind of sucks, right? It's just kind of tough to deal with buyers in this market. So then the question is, well, how do we handle that? What moves the needle? How do we make things improve moving forward? Well, I think we all know in any market, cash is king. If you're working with and dealing with cash buyers, that can be a lot easier to get a home under contract. It definitely moves your offer to the front of the line. It definitely catches sellers' attentions for sure. From a loan standpoint, I think we all know, fair or not, that conventional loans are typically looked at more favorably than all the other loan programs out there, FHA, VA, USDA, down payment assistance, things of that nature. I think the main reason for that, or the main culprit, is that fair or not, FHA and VA loans specifically get a bad rap in the market because they are more aggressive. They are designed to help more home buyers with lower credit and things like that. And those programs, as a result, with a lower credit score customer, tend to have more fallout than a customer with really good credit, really high credit, going the conventional route. So certainly if we can figure out a way to make a conventional offer to get a customer to qualify for a conventional loan, that can help. Appraisal gaps, you've probably seen this, customers that are offering, okay, if the home, we're going to offer 305, but we'll cover $5,000 if the home appraises for only 300 instead of 305, we're good. We'll just cover that difference and bring it to the table. So I see appraisal gap language in contracts. However, be aware that the appraisal gap language, I see that sometimes included in an FHA or a VA offer. I'm not sure if you know this, but if the file has an FHA or a VA contingency, that escape clause language in the financing contingency actually will supersede any other language in the contract, okay? And as a result, effectively, appraisal gap language in an FHA or VA contract doesn't matter. And that's another reason why I think sometimes those offers are shunned or not looked at as closely or not moved to the top of the list, because it doesn't matter. The customer could say, oh yeah, we'll pay $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 in appraisal gap. If that home appraises below the sales price, the customer can still get their earnest money back without any ramifications. That language in the appraisal gap doesn't supersede the buyer protection or the escape clause in the financing contingencies. So just heads up on that. Escalation clauses, maybe you've seen this before, where we'll say something like the customer will offer $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 more than the next highest offer. See that a lot. Definitely have multiple scenarios where that's helped customers get home under contract. And then finally, love letters. What I'll say real quick about love letters, guys, this is the buyer sending a letter to the seller. That's been brought up with the realtor board about fair housing concerns. And I certainly understand that and would never suggest anyone do anything that would be a fair housing violation. I found out after the fact, had a buyer, because he knew where the seller lived, he'd gone and looked at the house, actually write out a letter and mail it to the seller about their offer without the agents or anyone knowing about it. And obviously there's not a whole lot we can do with that or about that. But anyway, like I said, not recommending that, but just be aware that I have seen that move the needle. I have seen that have an effect on the seller, and don't recommend it, but it does happen, and you might be competing against that. Escalation clause, again, multiple data points showing this tends to work very well. It doesn't make sense if the customer's only offering $100 or $150 over the next best offer. Most sellers are like, well, that's a waste of my time. Why would we do that? I typically recommend, if customers want to do this, do at least $2,000, $2,500 over the next best offer. And then obviously they put a cap on it. If the home's listed for $275, maybe they want to offer $3,000 more than the next best offer, but they cap it out where their offer won't go any higher than say $295 or something like that. So that can be done. It's a special stip in the contract. If you haven't seen that before, definitely get with your broker, get with a closing attorney, make sure that you're protecting your client with that and that everybody's on the same page, but that can be really, really helpful. Dale, so with FHA appraisal gap offer, will the bank still lend if the appraisal comes back lower and the buyer is willing to cover the gap? Yes, absolutely. The buyer can always bring the appraisal gap, the difference, to the table, and we can close the loan. That can always happen. Just know that on a conventional contract, the special stip can be written and structured in a way where even if the appraisal comes in low, the buyer is still obligated to move forward and bring that cash to the closing table. On an FHA or VA loan, even though the buyer can choose to do that, they're not obligated to do that. Makes sense? So they could still potentially get out of the contract and get their earnest money back. Whereas on a conventional file, if the buyer has said they would do that and they're going to bring that money to the table, and then they decide, oh, you know what, I don't want to do that anymore. Well, then they would be in breach of contract and potentially lose their earnest money. And guys, bear with me 1 second. I've got one other issue. I'm gonna mute myself real quick. All right, sorry about that, guys. I'm back. Hopefully everybody can still hear me. There are some loan guidelines and features that can help with contingencies, and this is the part I think people don't know as much about. First of all, pretty much every lender right now will do upfront underwriting. At Homestar, we certainly will. If we have a customer who has already been through underwriting and their file's been approved, then we can make an offer on a property with a 0-day financing contingency. And of course, we can always do a 0-day financing contingency, but I don't recommend that for customers if they haven't turned in their documents and they haven't been reviewed, because that's quite a bit of risk for the customer, especially with some of the issues that can come up in the loan process. With that said, good customers who get pre-qualified beforehand and turn in all their docs, we can get that file reviewed and basically fully approved without even having a property address. Once they get a home under contract, then the biggest outstanding items are obviously the appraisal and the title. So just know we can get those financing contingencies down as low as 0 days, and certainly recommend that, especially for customers in lower price points that are still ultra competitive in this market. Some customers absolutely can eliminate an appraisal contingency altogether. This is, in this market, because of the high appreciation, especially some of our move-up buyers or buyers who are reselling, selling their home and buying a new one. Those customers a lot of times have more equity than they ever thought they would, and they plan on rolling that equity over and using it as a down payment on a new house. Well, if they're going to end up putting, 30, 35, 40% down, if that home appraises a little bit less, or the appraisal comes in a few thousand short, the loan will not change at all. The interest rate doesn't change. Nothing changes at 36% down versus 34% down. You see what I mean? So if they have a house they really like and want to get in it and be aggressive, they absolutely have enough money where they could just have no appraisal contingency whatsoever. Another guideline most people don't know about, I call this the NOC home swap guideline. If you're familiar with NOC and their system and the things that they, advertise and push out and stuff like that, they're like, oh, hey, we'll go ahead and find your home. And then once you find it, you can put it under contract and you can use the NOC mortgage company and we'll get you approved. And then you can sell your house to us or whatever. That is a standard conventional loan guideline. And again, most people don't know it exists. So for example, let's say I have a house to sell. I'm selling 123 Oak Street, and I want to buy 456, Juniper Street. I can, as long as I have a contract on my current home, on my Oak Street home, and we are past financing contingency. So if I have a contract and I'm past all the contingencies, conventional loan programs allow us to close the new loan for the customer without the current home selling, and we don't have to count that payment, the current home's monthly payment, in the customer's DTI to qualify. Okay, so again, most people are not aware of that or know that that exists. The challenge with that is some customers need the cash from the home that they are selling as a down payment to qualify for the new home. So this is more for customers who have some cash that can do a 3% or 5% down loan at a minimum on the new home. And then once they sell their current home, they can then take the equity that they had, the extra cash, and use that to pay down the new loan. We can do what's called a recast. Most people don't know this. Let's say that I'm buying a new home, it's $400,000. I plan on putting $200,000 down, so my monthly payment will be low. But because I don't want to do contingencies, maybe my home won't sell, blah, 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 I'm just going to go ahead and close on it and do minimum down. Maybe I borrow, $380, $390 on the new home. Once the current home sells and the customer puts that extra money down, we can recast the payment. It doesn't require a refinance. And by recasting, we're going to bring that mortgage payment down lower and bring it to where it would have been had they just closed on the home like normal and only borrowed $200,000. So just know that is out there. There's some creative ways we can get people into a home and eliminate that need for a contingency to sell their current home and still get them qualified and into the new home without that home selling. Let's see. Wendy, how are you getting past counting the mortgage payment if the house is not sold? And no, you're not misunderstanding me. Again, if the home the customer currently owns is under contract and there are no contingencies, then conventional financing will allow them to buy the new home without counting the payment on the current home. You heard that right. And again, most people don't know about that. There's good loan officers that I know that don't know that rule. So, and again, I think the take-home message when we're trying to eliminate contingencies and specifically financing contingencies from a contract is, you have to make sure you're working with a loan officer that knows the guidelines inside and out. 4, 5, 6 years ago, there was no reason to know that guideline because people were just happy to get a contract. And in most cases, more than happy to accept a contingency to sell their current home. Obviously, that world has changed pretty significantly here lately. But moving along, guys. Other than that, that's really all I have for you in the way of kind of traditional financing loan stuff. So the main beginning of the first half of this class is the ribbon program. Out of curiosity, in the chat box, just let me know, yes or no, have you heard of ribbon before? More so than me just saying the word ribbon right now. Familiar with it, heard of it, messed with it before, etc. Got some yeses, got some nos. So for the people using it for 4 clients now, I love it. Should probably have you unmute yourself and talk about it. It is a great program. Hopefully everybody can say the same thing here in a couple of months from now. So that, yeah, I've got 4 clients using the ribbon program right now. For the ribbon program, guys, we'll go into the mechanics of it and how it all works. But at the end of the day, ribbon makes all these other things that we've talked about, contingencies and appraisal contingencies and all this kind of stuff. It makes all of that go away. Okay. Ribbon is a program that will turn any financed offer into an all cash offer. You heard that right. A customer going VA, FHA, conventional, down payment assistance, whatever the financing is, whatever the plan is for the customer, we can turn that customer into an all cash offer, and you will write up an offer for that customer with an all cash exhibit. Okay. We use the cash exhibit with the right to obtain financing, and there are no contingencies needed. There's no contingencies at all in a ribbon offer. Okay. So hopefully that piques your interest. The best way I think to think about the ribbon program is if every customer had a rich grandpa or a rich uncle in the background. If the client, say they were sitting around a birthday table, it's a family get together, and they're just griping, oh my gosh, this market's terrible. I can't get a home under contract. We've made 10 offers and no one wants to deal with my FHA offer or my VA offer or whatever it is. And the rich grandpa or the rich uncle heard that and said, well, just tell them you'll pay cash. Just go do your loan like normal. And if for some reason it doesn't close, I'll step up and I'll buy the property. That's exactly what ribbon is. They back up any offer with their cash. Okay. And what that does is that guarantees the closing, because it doesn't matter if the CD didn't go out in time or the customer didn't give us a pay stub in time, or the W-2 was blurry and they didn't see the email where we asked for the updated W-2, or whatever other problem you've ever heard in your career with a loan program going bad or going wrong or not closing on time. Ribbon will be there and buy the property with their cash if for any reason the loan is not ready to close on time. Okay, so think of it as there's just this giant pool of money the customer has access to, and they can reach into that pool of money and use that cash to buy their house if they need to, if for some reason the loan is not ready. So the workflow to make a ribbon offer on the property, it's pretty standard practice for you guys on the agent side. The customer needs to call a mortgage company, preferably a mortgage company that is familiar with and has done ribbon before, preferably a lot of ribbon, and they will pre-qualify the customer just like normal. You know, credit, income, assets, recommend loan programs, the whole 9 yards. Then once we have that information, we as the loan company will enter the customer into the ribbon website, and I'll pull that up here in a second and show you what that looks like. As a real estate agent, you can absolutely get a login and a password for the ribbon website, and you can enter customers as well. However, I recommend, as a standard workflow, I recommend that you allow the loan officer to do that, because every question ribbon has is all mortgage and lender stuff related. Makes sense? They don't ask questions about, you know, how much house are they buying and how many bedrooms and what location and what school district. That's not what ribbon's interested in. Every question they have is, have they been pre-qualified? Have you verified income? Have you verified assets? Is the customer aware of some of the specific loan program guidelines that may impact them? And we'll talk more about those here in just a second. So I recommend allowing the loan officer to enter the customer into the ribbon website. Then we process the loan just like normal while ribbon is also while the customer is going through the ribbon process. Okay, so you know, we're going to go ahead and collect the bank statements and W-2s and pay stubs and the IDs and all that standard stuff while ribbon is doing their thing. As you have a property address, sorry guys, I don't know if you can hear that train in the background. I call it my clear to close horn. Got another clear to close. So that's good news. Anyway, so we process the loan just like normal. And then when the customer has a home they're interested in making an offer on, we have to put that address into the ribbon website, so ribbon will tell us what their max value is and what the ribbon rent payment will be. Okay, so table that for a minute. We'll explain all that here in just a few. But once we've done that, so we've got the customer pre-qualified, they're in the website, we've got, you know, ribbons process their loan, and we have an address, so we have a ribbon value. We're ready to make an all cash offer to the seller. Okay, and I'm going to pull up, let's see here, the website. So hopefully everybody can see a ribbon website now, because I believe I'm sharing a screen, not a window. Let me double check that. Good, looks good. So this is what the ribbon website looks like. So these are all the customers I currently have in ribbon right now. And for example, hopefully, you know, no one knows this guy. If you do, hopefully we'll stay professional here. But these are homes, and oh man, these have expired. It was good yesterday, shoot. Anyway, so we had put, what we do is we'll put the customer in there, we put the property address that they're interested in, and then ribbon will come back, and you can see right here, they actually give us two values now. They give us a max ribbon value as well as a standard ribbon value. And we'll talk more about that here in just a little bit. And then they also will tell us the monthly rent. So essentially what happens with ribbon is right from the very beginning, because we'll get this number back from ribbon in about 24 hours. And if we need to accelerate it, we can accelerate getting that information. But what we know right from the beginning, the expectation and the goal is that we close the loan just like normal for the customer, and they leave the closing table with a standard mortgage. If for some reason that mortgage doesn't close, and the main culprit for that is if they have a home to sell, and for whatever reason, that home that they're selling doesn't close on time, that lender's behind, or they don't get it under contract, or they get it under contract and the contract falls through before, and they're not, ready to close on the next one. Then they already know up front how much money they have to pay Ribbon in rent. Ribbon will buy the house for the customer, rent it out to them. It gives them up to 9 months to rent out the property. And then as soon as the customer's ready, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months later, whatever, then Ribbon will turn around and sell the home to the customer for the exact same amount of money that they paid for the home. Okay. So Dale, and you asked, is Ribbon a rent to own type situation? No, it's really not. Traditional rent to own programs out there. I can't think of the name of any of them right now, but like the Home Partners of America or whatever, those types of rent to own things. Those are companies that are typically geared towards customers who don't have the credit to buy right now, and they're working on it. And they typically do long-term, year, 2 year, 3 year type rental agreements to give the customer time to rebuild credit. That is not what Ribbon is. Ribbon is for customers who are currently qualified for a loan. Ribbons who are ready to go and their financing is in order and they can qualify for a loan today. However, because of the type of financing they qualify for, then they're having trouble getting a home under contract. Okay, so Ribbon's there to back up their offer with cash, but they understand that from time to time they actually will have to buy this property with cash, and then they have to have a system or mechanism in place to rent that home back out to the customer, so the customer can end up buying from them. But again, knock on wood, every customer so far that I've personally had go through Ribbon has closed on time, just like normal with a loan. Okay, and then they're able to just buy the property with the loan, but they're under contract on a home that they otherwise would not have won the contract on had they made a traditional FHA or USDA or VA offer. Because they're making an all cash offer, they're able to get that home under contract. Okay. Brad, is this applicable to any type of loan, USDA? Absolutely. Actually, I do this for a lot of USDA. In fact, Ribbon is the only way I can get VA customers under contract in this market. Good question. What are the other costs to the buyer? We will get into that here in just a second. That's a great question. Because the real question is, well, what's Ribbon doing? How do they actually make money? So again, guys, here's an example from the Ribbon website. They gave us a Ribbon max value on this one of $322. On this particular one, it actually had a list price of $300. So the Ribbon value that they allowed our customer to offer, you can see, was over the list price. Now, that doesn't always happen. They actually have a team of people that come up with that max Ribbon value. And we'll talk more about that and how that works. There's just a lot of moving parts with this program, and it's why we have a CE class. But it is possible not just to make an all cash offer, but to make an all cash offer in some cases that are even over the list price of the home. I've had some customers use that to actually negotiate closing costs. What a concept, right? Like, I actually had customers use Ribbon and get closing costs from the seller, which will help offset the Ribbon fee, or maybe it pays for the entire Ribbon fee and then some. So what we do is we use the leverage of Ribbon's cash to win the bid and get the home under contract. And then because we're making an all cash offer, hopefully we're able to negotiate better terms. Maybe we get a cheaper price, we get closing costs, we're able to negotiate more of a closing date that we want versus, being at the seller's beck and call in this market. All right. So Ribbon fees. So that's the question. Let's talk about it. All right. So Ribbon's fee, they will tell you online, and if you check it out, and I recommend that you do, the website is ribbonhome.com. Ribbon's fee is 2.4% of the purchase price. And for any offer backed by Ribbon, they will require 2.4% earnest money. Okay. However, at the closing table, Ribbon will reduce their fee to 1% if the transaction closes with traditional financing. Okay, so they'll tell you it's 2.4. The customer has to put 2.4% earnest money in the transaction up front. But if we close on the transaction like normal with our FHA or VA or USDA loan, like we should, then Ribbon's fee goes down to 1%. And that remaining money, that 1.4% that's left, is just like normal earnest money. If a customer has $10,000 earnest money in a transaction, that earnest money goes to cover their closing costs and down payment. It's all part of a credit that the customer receives, okay? It's the same thing here. They get full credit for the 2.4% earnest money. It's just that the closing statement, the HUD or the CD, will have a 1% transaction fee that goes directly to Ribbon, okay? When we finance the property this way on their website, Ribbon calls this Ribbon Boost. Now, I don't like that they name their program something different. I think that actually confuses things, but just know that if you're reading about Ribbon Boost online, the idea is that we're boosting the offer. We're getting the home under contract by backing up the offer with Ribbon Cash, and the fee for a Ribbon Boost transaction is 1%, okay? Dalen, so the 1% fee is technically like a non-refundable deposit. I wouldn't call it a non-refundable deposit. When a customer goes under contract with Ribbon, you have to think of it as, this is a transaction that will close. Makes sense? There's no contingencies. There's nothing there. There is some due diligence, and we'll talk more about that here in just a second. But there's a transaction with no contingencies, so it absolutely will close. So you can kind of think of the 2.4% as a non-refundable fee, because worst case scenario, Ribbon's going to collect their 2.4% and buy the house for our customer. Make sense? It's just that their fee goes down to 1% if the customer closes on the loan like normal, like if everything goes right, like they should. So that if it drops to 1%, that's Ribbon Boost. They have another program, but it's the exact same thing. They call it Ribbon Reserve. It's a 2.4% fee. And if Ribbon purchases the property, their fee stays at 2.4%. They don't reduce the fee, and Ribbon then turns around and leases the home back to the customer. I have up to 6 months here because that's what it says on their website, but they absolutely will extend that out to 9 months. I had a customer that came to me that had used Ribbon, and the other lender couldn't get the transaction closed, neither when they were under contract to close like normal, or get it closed when it was time to buy the home from Ribbon. And Ribbon extended that lease out 3 additional months to give us time to make it happen, because the customer had some other things they had to do and some loan programs we had to deal with. Okay. And we'll get into some of those nuances and how that works here in a minute. However, if the customer uses Ribbon Reserve, or if Ribbon has to buy the property, they can purchase the home from Ribbon at any time. They don't have to wait that full 6 months. Ribbon's happy to turn around and sell it to them as soon as they can. So Dalen, you asked, and the 1.4%, it's still on the slide as part of the closing costs still. It's on the slide as part of the closing costs still. I think I see what you're asking here. I wouldn't get lost. I think people always get confused if you're trying to apply specific dollars in a transaction to specific fees. Don't think about it like that. To make the math easy, let's say the customer is under contract on a $200,000 house, okay? And their earnest money, 2.4% of $200,000 is going to be $4,800, all right? Well, let's say after Ribbon's 1% fee, which would be $2,000, after closing costs, let's say that's going to be about $6,000. After down payment, let's say that's another $6,000. The customer would need, I don't know, what is that, $14,000, $15,000 to close the transaction. So they need $15,000 to close the transaction, but they've already paid $4,800 in earnest. Make sense? So the $15,000 they needed to close the transaction minus the $4,800 in earnest money, they're going to be bringing about $10,000, $10,200, let's say, to the closing table. Make sense? So don't overthink that. Don't try to think, oh, there's 1.4% here, what there's a cost to close a loan, and then there's credits when a customer closes a loan, and the credits are going to be the earnest money. The cost is going to be all the closing costs, the attorney's fees, the lender fees, any points they have to pay, as well as the Ribbon fee. It's just an additional closing cost that's wrapped up into the bottom line number. And that fee, again, if they close on the loan like normal, is 1% of the purchase price. Do you have anyone from Ribbon that you can share the info so we can contact? Yes, I can. So, and we'll pull this back up here in just a minute as well. But on the website, if you look over here on the left, or if you sign up on Ribbon, so what we can do, if you want to email me under this invite agents, I can put your information here, and that will give you a Ribbon username and password that you can log into their website. When you get into their website, you will have a Ribbon advisor. So mine is Xavier. I've talked to him several times, really nice guy. You're welcome to call him. You can grab that number real quick, or when you sign up, you'll have your own Ribbon advisor that you can reach out to and ask questions. Yes, they are busy. No, they don't return phone calls immediately, but you absolutely can get them on the phone. You absolutely can get them to return an email. Overall, they've been, really, really good to work with. Okay. So through the website, you can get all that information. Gotcha. And Dalen, what I would say is on your first client that uses this, I would recommend that once you get them interested in it, let's call me, let's do a 3-way call. That way I can answer their questions and you can kind of hear the spiel I give people. And then you can also ask your questions as well during that phone call, just to make sure we're all on the same page. But yes, the 1% fee truly is just 1% if the loan closes on time. So the cost to make an all cash offer with no contingencies on a $200,000 home is $2,000. So that's what I tell customers. I'm like, look, for $2,000, we can eliminate all these contingencies and give yourself a much better shot of getting this home under contract, because now we can go Ribbon for $2,000, and in exchange for $2,000, you're able to use Ribbon's cash if you need it and fill out an all cash exhibit instead of an FHA financing contingency exhibit. Okay. So for Ribbon, I like to think about any program in kind of the terminology of best case and worst case. The best case scenario is the customer buys a home with traditional financing and secures favorable enough terms to offset the 1% cost, right? So maybe the home was listed at 200, but our customer was actually able to get it under contract for 200 versus having to offer 205 or 210 with a financed offer. So they've more than saved the 1% fee. Maybe they were able to get it under contract for 205, but they were able to get $5,000 in closing costs. Again, more than pays for the 1% fee, and they had some money left over to cover some of their other standard closing costs. So that's the absolute best case scenario. Other scenarios is, say the customer is unable to obtain financing by the close date. Ribbon would then purchase the home. The customer rents the home from Ribbon and then secures financing to eventually purchase from Ribbon. If they do that, now remember, it has been more expensive because that fee went from 1% to 2.4%. So that's how Ribbon makes money. They make 1% if they don't use their money. They make 2.4% plus rent if they do use their money. But the customer still was able to get a home, get it under contract, still able to buy a home in this market. All right. The worst case scenario would be if the customer is unable to obtain financing by the close date. Ribbon purchases the home. The customer rents it from Ribbon for the 6 months, 7 months, 9 months, whatever it is. And then for whatever reason is still unable to secure financing. Maybe in the interim, they lost their job or, had a family emergency, had to spend money that they had earmarked for the house, whatever can happen. There are reasons that would knock a person out from being able to qualify. Maybe in the interim, their credit report expired and they had a big collection hit their report they didn't know about. And when we update the credit report, maybe they don't have the credit to qualify anymore. So there is some risk with Ribbon. The worst case scenario is that once the lease is up, Ribbon will either evict the customer, or the customer has to move out of their own free will because their lease is up, and then Ribbon will turn around and simply sell the home on the open market. What it doesn't do is it doesn't affect the customer's credit. It doesn't put a foreclosure. This isn't an owner financing deal where they have to foreclose or mess up their credit or mess up their ability to buy in the future. It simply, is, okay, we tried to buy this home. We rented it for 6 months. For whatever reason, it didn't work out. Now we've got to find somewhere else to move, some other home to buy. and Ribbon will just turn around and sell that home. Okay. So that's worst case scenario. And what I like about that again is that we're not branding this person with a 3-year, 7-year, whatever foreclosure like you sometimes run up against with owner financing, where they have to take the home back and do a deed in lieu of foreclosure or actually go through the foreclosure process. Some other pieces that I think we need to mention and bring up. If a customer is doing FHA, and I've got a lot of FHA customers that are going Ribbon, but there's some things that I have to let the customer know about if they're doing FHA financing, and I think it's good for you as real estate agents to know this as well. Remember, if a customer is an FHA customer, the goal is to close the loan on time, just like normal. Okay, customer, they have a Ribbon offer, so they have a home under contract as all cash, but we're doing an FHA loan and we close it just standard. A lot of people ask the question like, well, wait a minute, Jay, I thought you couldn't close an FHA loan unless the seller signs all those FHA addendums and exhibits. You're absolutely correct. What we do in these scenarios is we just have the seller sign those documents at the closing table. Make sense? So it doesn't really matter because we're sitting there at the table, we're going to close anyway. The seller's like, whatever, I'll sign it. It doesn't really affect them unless, those contingencies only matter if you're signing it beforehand. However, if Ribbon does purchase the home, there's 2 FHA guidelines that come into play that you need to know about. All right. The first one most people are familiar with, the 90-day flip rule. So if Ribbon purchases the home, they're happy to turn around and sell it to that customer the next day or 2 weeks later or 1 month later, but FHA will not allow Ribbon to do that. Remember, in the 90-day flip rule, FHA will not finance a property if title has changed on that property within the last 90 days, and we can't sign the contract until the 91st day. So I have to let the customer know, look, if for any reason this loan doesn't close on time and you have to rent from Ribbon, you're going to be paying this Ribbon monthly rent, whatever that number is, you're going to be paying that for a minimum of 3 months if we're going FHA. That's the first thing they have to know. And again, most people are familiar with that. Most agents are aware of the FHA 90-day flip rule. The guideline that catches most agents and even catches most loan officers that are trying to do Ribbon and not overly familiar with it is the FHA identity of interest rule. This is what FHA calls, you can think of the same thing as a non-arm's length transaction. Fair or not, FHA says a tenant-landlord relationship is an identity of interest. It's a non-arm's length transaction. So if a customer has recently started renting from a landlord, that's a relationship that FHA says, uh-oh, we've got to watch out. And FHA will not allow the borrower maximum financing. The customer has to put 15% down instead of the standard 3.5% down. And it only goes to the max financing, the 3.5% down, after the customer has rented for 6 months. Okay. So a lot of words in there, kind of confusing. Let's say it again, maybe a little bit clearer. What this effectively means is if the customer has to allow Ribbon to buy the home and they're renting from Ribbon, they're going to have to rent the home out for Ribbon for 6 months and have to wait out 6 months until they can do the minimum down, which would be 3.5% down. If they want to close if we get past the 90-day flip rule, but before the 6-month identity of interest rule has expired, the customer would have to put 15% down to go FHA. Okay. So again, that's more of a conversation between the loan officer and the customer, but I think it's something that's important for agents to know, and it's certainly something to be aware of. Ribbon's certainly aware of this. They make sure with every client, they end up sending us an email. Is the client aware of FHA's identity of interest rule if we have to buy the property? And we have to send them an email or basically certify that, yes, we've had this conversation with the customer. So just be aware of that. Brad asked, are there areas or regions where Ribbon won't purchase? Yes, there absolutely is. So Ribbon has a buy box. And I mean, they'll give it to us. They're not like trying to hide that or anything. But like, for example, I know you can get exceptions to this, but they don't like to buy a home on more than 4 acres. If you're out in the absolute, middle of nowhere, Cave Spring, Georgia, something like that, I don't think they do business out there. They're in all kinds of states down here in the Southeast, all throughout Georgia, Florida, Alabama. They started in North Carolina, all through there, but they're mainly in metro areas, metro locations. So like in, like for instance, I've done plenty of ribbon transactions in Carroll County around Carrollton and out into Waco and stuff like that. But yeah, you're right. Like down south, I know I've got a loan officer buddy of mine that does a bunch of business in Tifton. I was talking with him about this program and he got all excited only to find out that right now Tifton, Georgia is not in Ribbon's buy box. And the reason for that, guys, is if we go back a few slides here, Ribbon, they give us a max value that they're willing to back up a property. And there actually is a lot of effort and information in this number right here. And they only have so many people to do so much research in so many different markets. So they try to keep that obviously to expand their business in the biggest markets that they have access to. And it's just not worth it to do the research to figure out the max offer they can give on a property in Tifton, Georgia. Okay, so there definitely are some geographic restrictions in Ribbon. The key to it is to get on the website, sign up for it, and just start entering properties. I tell agents, look, if you think you might make an offer on a property, go ahead and get that property in Ribbon, get the value. If you don't use it, great. It didn't cost you anything. But if the customer does want to make an offer, then you know exactly what you have at your disposal with Ribbon and with what they're willing to do. Now, the reason the property value is such a big deal is because, remember, we said that these homes have no appraisal, no contingencies, and that includes no appraisal contingencies, okay? So what that means effectively for your customer is that Ribbon is offering appraisal protection. Ribbon will pay the seller to reduce the price of the home if the appraisal comes in low. So on this example back here, this home that was listed at $300,000, but the Ribbon max value was $322,000. If we do this loan and this home only appraises for $310,000, Ribbon will actually write a check for $12,000 to make that transaction close. So not only is the customer getting to make a all cash offer for a 1% fee, they're actually getting, you can kind of think of it as appraisal insurance. Make sense? They get the ability to make an offer on a home, and if it appraises low for whatever reason, Ribbon will actually foot that difference and back it up. So that's usually where a lot of people are like, okay, Ribbon, it sounds cool, it sounds good, but then we mention that feature, people are like, wait a minute, this is fantastic. We need to be doing this. So it really is a good program. They absolutely will do this. I had a scenario recently where Ribbon wrote a check, I want to say for $32,000 to close a transaction. And then the next obvious question I get from people is, well, why would they do this? What are they doing? Remember, they control their risk. They're the ones that are giving us their max value that they're willing to back up. And as a result, they're comfortable with the numbers they're giving us. And in my personal opinion, they use this more to kind of like as a marketing budget, because what happens is anytime I've had a value come in low where a customer's using Ribbon, all the agents that are involved, they're walking around telling people, oh my gosh, have you heard about Ribbon? This is incredible. It's great for the buyers. It's great for the sellers. It's just a wonderful tool in this marketplace. And now more people are using Ribbon. So it's as much a marketing budget as it is anything. And if they have a whole bunch of values that start coming in really, really low and they're spending all this money, then they'll just tighten up their Ribbon max value. They'll tighten up how much they're willing to back up and allow people to offer on a house. Okay. So that's that's Ribbon in a nutshell. That's the basics that you need to know. Now, it's been effective for about not even a month and a half now. It started back at the beginning of May, because word got out and people were actually taking advantage of this Ribbon appraisal protection. I certainly didn't encourage it, but I heard stories of agents being like, oh yeah, send us a Ribbon offer and make sure this appraisal goes to, whoever, Bob or Jimmy or somebody we know. he's already told me he's going to bring it in a little bit low. Ribbon will foot the difference. Your seller gets your money and my buyer gets to buy the house for cheap. And Ribbon realized that with this appraisal protection policy, even though they felt like it was a good program for them, that it kind of opened themselves up as a corporation, as a company, for people to take advantage of them, right? So to combat that, they actually have a slightly new system now. They call it Ribbon. So everything we've talked about is standard, what we call Ribbon Cash. What this, they've now branded it Ribbon Cash Plus. So this is brand new as of May 4th. And on every contract now, or every property, we actually get 2 ribbon values. And if you were paying attention, you probably saw that on the dashboard that I had up a second ago. So on my dashboard here, and again, it had expired on this particular customer, but you can see right here, we had a max ribbon value and then a ribbon value. So they're actually giving us 2 values. The ribbon value will always be lower than the max ribbon value. Okay, that makes sense. The ribbon value works just like we've talked about. If it appraises low, Ribbon will foot a bill for the difference. The customer's protected. We have appraisal protection. The fees 1%. Everything is just like normal, just like we discussed. Okay. However, if the customer wants to offer more than the ribbon value, okay, if they want to go up, a lot of times the max ribbon value will be $10,000, sometimes $15,000 more than just the basic ribbon value. If the customer wants to offer more than the ribbon value, they have 2 options. What happens is, because it's extra risk for Ribbon, they want the customer to share in that risk with them, and they charge a higher fee. Okay, so we get, if the customer is offering more than the ribbon value, if they want to go up to the ribbon max value and use Ribbon Cash Plus, then the fee is, there's 2 ways the customers can pay a fee, so it gets very complicated in a hurry. Okay, they can either pay a fee now. So what happens is, Ribbon, instead of charging a 1% fee, they charge the 1%, and in addition to that, they add 25% of the additional value. Or they can pay later, meaning that in the future, when the customer sells or refinances the home, Ribbon will share in 25% of the equity of the home. Now, this gets really complicated in a hurry, and I don't know if it's worth your time and eyes glazing over to break it all down, but just understand that there is an online calculator here. So ribbonhome.com, under home buyer resources, under Ribbon Cash Plus. Good grief, come on, computer. They've got videos that explains how it all works, and you can use the estimate with the calculator to explain if they want to pay the fee now or pay it later, how the cost will work for a customer. So it's all online. I can certainly run the math and explain it to a customer. For when we have specific numbers, we can explain it a little bit better, but just understand that the customer does, if they offer excessively more than the home, or kind of what Ribbon thinks it's actually worth, then they can do that, but they do share in the risk. And if that appraisal comes in low, there is a mechanism for Ribbon to, in the future, get some of that money back. Okay, and really what this does is it gets the customer in the same vein as Ribbon, where if that appraisal comes in low, the customer and the lender and the agent have an incentive or a reason to fight that appraisal to try to get the value up. Whereas before, if it came in low, Ribbon's like, well, no, we've got this comp, we've got that comp, we think this home's worth more. And the agent and the lenders, everybody's like, well, whatever, just pay it. No, it's up to you guys. So, that's the whole point of Ribbon Cash. It just allows the customer to share in the risk of that appraisal coming in low. And there is still a way for the customer to get into that home if the home does appraise low. And again, if we keep the offer at just the standard Ribbon value and it appraises low, Ribbon's on the hook for the difference anyway. There's the appraisal protection still there and alive and well. Okay, so like I said, just an extra piece there about Ribbon Cash. I think the take-home message with Ribbon is that you can make an all cash offer, no appraisal contingencies, no financing contingencies. The fee for that cost, I think, is relatively cheap. And it's a great way in this market to get customers under contract. There's some caveats that we have to watch out for specifically for FHA financing, but a good lender that's got familiar with it should be able to explain these rules to the customers. And your customers can know what they're stepping into from the beginning. They can go into it and be confident and excited about buying a home. And I've had a lot of customers that are just like, man, I wish I'd have known about Ribbon before, because they've been searching for homes for 2 or 3 or 4 months. And now, their first Ribbon offer, because it's all cash, they're under contract and they're willing to make it. They're able to move forward and actually get into a home. And Montia, yes, good point. Because Ribbon has to have that feature of being able to rent the home to the buyer if they have to buy the home themselves, then the property can't be in an HOA or something like that that has rental restrictions. So that's a good point. There are geographic restrictions where Ribbon won't do business, and then they will check the HOAs. Every Ribbon offer does require 7 days due diligence, and Ribbon will require the buyer to get a home inspection that they're going to review. They do that because they're not in the business of just buying a dilapidated home. And during that due diligence, Ribbon will also find out if there is an HOA, and if so, if there are any rental restrictions. And there are reasons where Ribbon would, back out of a property or back out of a contract. But overall, they're really, really good to work with. I haven't had many, off the top of my head, I can't really think of any at all that have fallen apart due to a property inspection or anything like that. I have had one where the customer, where they wanted to buy, there were restrictions in the HOA that prevented it. In Atlanta, 90% of the houses have restrictions. This isn't the short-term rental restrictions, it's long-term rentals. And you're right, there are some properties that are not Ribbon eligible, but there's lots and lots. I would say the amount of properties that are eligible for someone to use Ribbon are a lot higher than the ones that are not eligible. So that's a good point. Any other questions, guys? Anything about Ribbon or trying to get traditional buyers under contract, contingencies, things of that nature, anything at all? All right. All right, guys. So what we're going to do, we're about 11:15. We're going to take about a 10-minute break. I've got to return some phone calls because my phone has been blowing up here. So I'm going to mute myself. If you do have any questions, please be sure to put them in the chat box. We'll get those answered. And so we'll take a quick break. And like I said, we'll be back here in about 10 minutes. All right, everybody, we'll get restarted here in just a few minutes. Definitely after the break, go ahead and put, again, same information, name, license number, phone number, email address, all that good stuff in the chat box for me. Also, I'm going to start a poll, and we'll leave this up and available through the end of the class. Let's see, there we go. So we'll get that in there, and obviously answering the poll questions is also a way we can document attendance and being back from the break and all that fun stuff. So we'll jump right back in it here in just a second. All right, guys. So for the second part of the class here, we're going to change gears a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about short-term rentals. Okay, so let me reshare the screen. There we go. So something else about me, I've definitely done real estate, obviously, mainly in the vein of mortgages for years and years and years. But during that time frame, I've also managed a hard money lending company. I've flipped multiple houses. I've owned multiple long-term rentals, but short-term rentals has really been an eye-opening experience from a real estate investment standpoint for me personally. And when it comes to some of, like, when you flip a home, it's fine that there's a cash opportunity there, especially if you're able to buy right and make some money. But flipping a home, I think that requires a lot of hands-on effort. There's always issues going on with renovating property, and there's always going to be something to deal with from that standpoint, in my opinion. Long-term rentals, a lot of times that's a long-term equity play as well. A lot of times those properties will rent out, they'll cash flow maybe a couple $100s a month, best case scenario, that you'll need to fix up the property when the renter moves out, a year or 2 or 3 down the road. So it's more having someone pay down the property to build equity long-term, and there's nothing wrong with that. But short-term rentals, and if you're not familiar with short-term rentals, these are properties that you would market for a shorter stay, like on Airbnb and VRBO and stuff like that. I came across this quote that I really like. This is Warren Buffett. He said, "If you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die." So what I like about short-term rentals and what we're going to discuss today is kind of some things that I've learned doing it personally to create a business plan for you. And obviously you can do this personally on your own, but also, because again, the whole point of this class, guys, is working with buyers and getting a chance to work with more buyers. I would recommend taking this information to other investors, to people who are in real estate, people trying to figure out where to park their money because, inflation's really high, and I've got this cash that's sitting here. I've got this, home equity now that's sitting here and doing nothing. What can we do with this to actually make some money? So let's get into it here, and I'll give you some ideas and some best practices, and maybe open up some opportunities for you here as well. Okay. So again, the goals with this show you how to research markets for a short-term rental, discuss the different ways to acquire a short-term rental, and then finally, how do we manage, advertise, and maximize profit for a short-term rental to make money while you're sleeping, right? How can we show people to make money while you sleep? And then can we take this out? And really the fourth bullet point should be, okay, and then take this plan to other people and other investors to make a transaction happen. So the first step in any marketplace where people are trying to do this and make something happen, step number one is to choose a market the biggest question I have with anybody that's, delved into this, stumbled across it on the website, heard someone else talking about it, is they just don't know how to estimate how much income you can make from a short-term rental. Okay. And it's a fair question because it is abnormal. We can give somebody a pretty good idea. You can look at a home and go, oh, well, that home here in Douglasville, it's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. It was this 1975 ranch. It'll rent out for $1,500 a month or $1,800 or whatever the going rent rate is. You can figure that out pretty quickly. Short-term rentals are obviously a little bit trickier. So I want to give you some tools. And the first one, we'll just do it live right here. So I really like this website from just an initial starting point. If someone sent me a home or said, hey, here's a home, maybe there's something available. It's airdna.co. That's not .com, it's .co. So airdna.co. You can set up a username and password for free. They don't charge you for this. Obviously, I'm already in it, so it's got it set up for me. I don't actually pay for anything with AirDNA. So if you look on the left-hand side here, everything over here is locked, except this one tool right here called the Rentalizer. And what I like about the Rentalizer is it will give you an idea of what a home will actually rent for in a short-term rental market. Okay, so let's hopefully no agents will. Hopefully you won't tar and feather me for looking on Zillow. Let's say maybe we'll do a live example here. Anyone in the chat have an area you might be interested in buying a short-term rental, or know someone that might be interested, whether just someplace you like to go vacation, whether it's, I don't know, Daytona Beach or Blue Ridge, just any marketplace at all that might be a place to go stay and hang out for a few days. All right, Karen, you won. You got it in first. We're going to grab that one. So we'll do Miramar Beach, Florida. So we'll plug that in here in Zillow. Obviously, there's some homes for sale here in Miramar Beach. And I don't know, let's pick that one. So this one's not on the beach or anything, just a property for sale. 625. This is 450 South Geronimo Street in Destin, Florida. Let's grab that address. All you have to do is grab that address, come back over here to the AirDNA Rentalizer, type the address in. I just copy pasted it. Click search. And here we go. All right, so AirDNA estimates that we can get about $72,000, $71,000 in short-term rental income and annual revenue for this home here in Destin, Florida. All right, now we have to double check the data. So this says this is a 2-bedroom, 3-bath property, 12, about 1,300 square feet. The system actually pulled in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath property. So let's update that for the listing. And 2 bedrooms, maybe you can sleep someone on the couch. Maybe you can get 6 guests in this unit. So let's update that. Now with that data, it actually went down for 3 bathrooms. So that shows an example here of some of the problems with AirDNA data. What it does, guys, is it just takes an average of the, so AirDNA has a bot that pulls and looks at all the data that it can pull from Airbnb, and it actually will find listings similar to the one you put in the Rentalizer and just kind of give you an average in that general area. And what's probably happening here is there's more 2-bedroom, 2-bath units than there are 2-bedroom, 3-bath units, or perhaps the ones that are being marketed for only 4 guests are being marketed better, have better prices, so they're showing better annual income than the ones that are marketed for 6 guests. So again, this isn't perfect, and it kind of exacerbates the point that we'll get to here in a second, that this is not the Bible, but you can get an idea. We're somewhere in that $65,000 to $70,000 in annual revenue when we plug this in and look at a rental here in Destin, Florida. Okay, so this is a starting point, really good tool. You can show people, I'll start here and just see, is this something, am I even potentially interested in? And my personal rule of thumb is that the annual rental income that you get, at the minimum that I'll consider, is it has to be more than 1% of the purchase price. And in this case, it actually is. So 1% would be 62,500. This one's showing 71,000. What the other number was, what, 64,000, 67,000. So we meet that 1% rule. Doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to go run out and make an offer on this property today, but just know that that's kind of my first number before that I'll have to look at before I'll entertain a property. I want to see that the annual revenue can at least be 1% of the purchase price. If this annual revenue is as high as 2% of the purchase price, then that one's pretty much a no-brainer. I probably would run off and be like, hey guys, we got to take a break and log off and see about making an offer on it, because that will absolutely cash flow like a champ. But so this is a starting point to look at it. The problem with AirDNA, again, this is what I like about it, is this is very easy data to get. It's free data. You can pull it up. I can pull it up. Everybody can pull it up. And it's a great starting point. Now, when we get to the beach, though, and you'll find this is true in lots of markets and things like that in this short-term rental space. So if I pull up the map here, I think we all know when you're visiting Miramar Beach or you're visiting Destin, Florida, one of the big amenities is the beach, right? And you probably see that reflected in sales prices. Homes down here that are direct beachfront are going to be more expensive than homes up here that are, a half mile off the beach. So another tool that I like to use in addition to AirDNA is Price Labs, okay? And I'll pull that up for you as well. Now this one actually does cost money, so I can't pull up, without paying for it, I can't pull up the Price Labs data here for Miramar Beach, but I'll show you one of the ones I do have. Let's see here. Get logged in. And the tool I use with Price Labs is called their Market Dashboard. And so I actually own a couple condos in Orange Beach, Alabama. Yikes. And I can't pull this up right now, shoot. Well, darn guys, my subscription went off. I don't know if like the credit card expired or something like that. All right, let me pull that one back up. Now the problem is, since I just turned this back on, it's going to take a few minutes for it to run this dashboard. Dang. All right, well, let me explain to you what it looks like. I think I have a picture of it here on the slide, so let me just show you why I like Price Labs. So AirDNA, like I said, we can show you, it'll give you some basic information. A couple months ago, I was actually looking at a property in Gulfport, Mississippi, which is why I had these numbers ran here on my slides. Obviously, you can look at the expected annual revenue, so it's something we want to do. The beauty of AirDNA, like we said, it's free, easy to use. You can customize the beds and baths. The problem is it's a simple average. It's not perfect data. If you do want to buy the data from AirDNA, it gets quite expensive. I think they want $100, $150 to actually get a marketplace. And the additional data is very overwhelming with AirDNA. It'll break down like the number of units and what they rent out for if they do or don't have a microwave. And while that's interesting, I mean, that's really specific and probably more data than we need. With Price Labs, and again, we're just gonna have to do it this way, guys. I apologize, can't do this live right now. When we create the dashboard, in this case, so this is for Gulfport, Mississippi. And what it will actually pull up, this is like a heat map of all the short-term rentals in Gulfport. And what I like about this, if you look at the map here, obviously red homes get more money per day. The average price is $300, maybe $350 per day for red dot properties. And then as it goes to gray and green, the daily rates get cheaper and cheaper. And if you look here in Gulfport, Mississippi, it makes sense, right? More of your red dots and your properties that command higher dollars are beachfront or close to the beach, and your green dot properties are off of the beach or away from the beach. So with that AirDNA number, with these numbers here we get from AirDNA, this average, they're going to take a generic average of all the short-term rentals in the area, and you may pick up data that is bogus and wrong. And it could go both ways. A beachfront property may be averaged in with lower rate properties, and then it can actually do more. And then homes that are off the beach might actually do less than what AirDNA is showing. I think Price Labs is a good tool to kind of see where the hot spots are and what homes actually rent out for more versus other homes. The other thing you can do with Price Labs, and maybe that data will show up here in a minute, but you can actually click on these specific properties and see the actual Airbnb or VRBO listing and see what that property is doing and what it's renting out for versus a property that you might be interested in or your investor might be interested in. It's just really, really good data, really good information to try to make a logical assumption about how much rent, how much will this property actually do. So then you can decide, or your investor can decide, your new buyer can decide, is this the property I want to buy, or do I want to do more research and look at the next property, or kind of see what numbers are available. The other thing I really like about Price Labs is, in addition to all the heat map here and seeing all the short-term rentals available, it'll actually sort it for you on a table, and we can click on, again, in the table, we can click on the Airbnb links. What I like to do, and let me just try one more time to see if that data is available. Go back to this. Oh, perfect. It'll let me do it. So this is a market dashboard through Price Labs in Gulf Shores. I'm sorry, this is Orange Beach, Alabama. Website's running slow. Let me give it a second to think about it. So this is the heat map. What's interesting here, as we zoom in, crashed it. What's interesting here, as we zoom in, you can see, obviously, the heat map's all over the place, but you've got lots of red dots over here on the left. So there's higher rental units over here, and you've got a big pocket of red dots right here, higher rental units, higher numbers here, and then some stuff mixed in between. If I'm going to buy an Orange Beach, I'm going to look and try to figure out, why are units renting for more in this area, and why are units renting for more in this area? You also have this huge pocket of red dots right here. Don't know if you're familiar with the Orange Beach area. I am. I can tell you this is that complex called Carib. That's not beachfront. It's got all kinds of fun, neat amenities and lazy rivers and stuff like that that you can purchase properties in. But you get, lots of information here, lots of data. And then in the table, what I like to do, let's say if I'm looking at a 3-bedroom unit, I'll filter out all the short-term rentals to only show me 3-bedroom units, right? Because I don't want to be comparing it against, 9 and 12 bedroom beach houses that are $4 million if I'm looking at buying a $500,000 condominium. So I'll filter out that data. And then the other thing that I'll do, once it filters, it's a lot of data, so it takes a minute. And I think, guys, it's just because I recently refreshed this site, so it's running a little bit slow again. It's not normally this long. But then what I'll do is I'll actually sort these properties by revenue, okay? So you've got, 118 pages of 3-bedroom units available in Orange Beach, okay? The top, this one right here is showing, it's estimating they did revenue of $267,000 last year, short-term renting the top 3-bedroom unit in Orange Beach. Were we going to be the top unit? Probably not, but hopefully we can manage and market it and do it well to be maybe somewhere in the top 15, top 10%. Well, that would be back here. You're looking at, we're on page 6, and this is what, 10 units. So we've got 60 plus units in Orange Beach doing 100 grand or more in gross revenue in a year. Okay. I don't know about you, I consider that pretty good opportunity. And you can actually look at it here and be like, okay, this unit, it's estimating they did $102,000 in revenue. We can click on the link here and actually see the Airbnb listing. And this is the condo that did the pictures, and it's just a beach condo. This is the condo that did $100,000 in revenue in Orange Beach last year. Okay. And you can get a feel, okay, well, what about this one? My guess is it's probably another 3-bedroom condo. Yep, beachfront 3-bedroom condo. This one's on the ground floor. So the other one, this one, and guys, you see I'm clicking on this randomly. This one was a penthouse unit. So this one's top floor. This one's ground floor. So that's kind of a data point to me. Well, maybe it's not that big a deal where I'm located. Obviously, you want to have good pictures. I think people are going to click on things and book things that have, pretty views and stuff like that. But I mean, this is very attainable numbers. And I can tell you from personal experience, this is an extremely attainable number for a 3-bedroom condo in Orange Beach. So I really like the data inside of Price Labs to kind of zero in. And once I found a market that I'm interested in through AirDNA, then I'll purchase the dashboard and look at the data inside Price Labs. So that's kind of my order of operations and how I would go about researching this. Let me pull up those slides again. Price Labs, what I like about it is listing specific. You can see the specific listings, address specific, because you can see where the property is located. These dashboards that you're seeing can be purchased for as little as $10. Now it's $10 a month, but you can actually download all that information and have it available to go back and look at. The problem with Price Labs is overall the website's a little clunky. You saw it moves kind of slow. It's not a very pretty website. And you do run into website filter errors. Just to show you real quick, what I mean by that is if you run more than one filter at a time, and maybe they fix this. So I like to sort by revenue. And then I like to say, okay, well, these 3-bedroom units, you can add, like I can add the number of bathrooms as well to compare, say, a 3-bedroom, 3-bed unit versus a 3-bed, 2-bath unit. And you can search by, a 2.0 bathroom unit. The problem is when you do that, you can see right here, 2.5, you don't just get 2-bedroom units, you get additional data. It's just, there's errors sometimes with the filtering and it just doesn't work as well as it should. So just be aware of that. But at the same time, it's really, really good data. And as long as you're only filtering one item at a time, this table tends to work really well. Worst case scenario, you can download the data as a Excel file and do your own data analysis through Excel if you're so inclined. So Thomas, you asked sell price of a beachfront 3-bedroom condo in Orange Beach. You have to do some research on that. I can tell you, I bought a 3-bedroom beachfront unit in Orange Beach in 2020 for $529. Obviously, it's not selling for that now. But I've had my sister-in-law, she just bought a 2-bedroom, 2-bath beachfront condo. And I want to say she got it for under, I want to say it was like $475 or something like that. So, just check out the market, see what's available, do your research and don't think, guys, there's other markets to be in other than Orange Beach. And let's talk about that real quick. So let's see here. I actually canceled the slideshow. My bad. So when you're choosing the market, obviously looking at these data, knowing what the home will rent out for, projecting what your income is going to be is critical. That's because the biggest question most people have is, well, will it pay for myself? Will it pay for itself? Is it going to cost me every month to own this thing? And hopefully you can see from these numbers that it'll not just pay for itself, but it should cash flow quite nicely. However, there's quite a few intangibles that I think you have to be cognizant of if this is a market you want to get in, or if you have an investor that wants to jump in it. For me personally, with us buying our first one, I specifically wanted a 3-bedroom unit because I mentioned before I've got 3 kids, and I wanted a place that was close enough that we could go use it as well. So there's the added benefit of not just renting it out, but also, you know, having the ability, if you have a weekend that cancels or a week for some reason that just won't book, or it's, you know, not the summer, maybe it's a slower season down there in Orange Beach in like October and the kids are on a break, maybe we can go down there and use it personally for a few days. So are there goals for personal use? Obviously that'll play a role. There's going to be some extra costs that you may not think about when you're getting into the Airbnb short-term rental game. Things such as permits and licenses. Flood insurance is a big one. Pretty much every property in Gulf Shores and Orange Beach, anything kind of beachfront, is going to have some flood insurance that's required, and that stuff is not cheap at all. Karen, you made a good point. HOAs, condo buildings are always going to have HOAs. A lot of times the reason the HOA fees are so high is because the HOA, the complex, is the one responsible for carrying and maintaining that flood insurance. So some common sense things about, oh yeah, I know to look at that, definitely be cognizant of that, think about it. Something a lot of people don't think about, and this is huge, I think this should probably be at the top of the list actually, is local municipality support. I think someone mentioned before, I saw it go across on the chat box when we were talking about an area you may want to buy something in. I think someone said Atlanta. Did I see that right? Yeah, Jennifer, you mentioned Atlanta. I love it. I think Atlanta would be a great market to own a short-term rental, but for the fact, not sure if you've seen it in the news, there's a lot of people throwing their hands up in the air, a lot of craziness going on. Atlanta just passed some of the most restrictive short-term rental kind of Airbnb laws. One individual, you're only allowed to own 2 short-term rentals in Atlanta, and one of them has to be your primary residence, and you can't get a license unless you are a resident of Atlanta. So your primary residence has to be in Atlanta to get a short-term rental license to do another short-term rental in Atlanta. Okay, so it gets and then so every year for the last couple of years, I've gone snow skiing out in Tahoe. Beautiful snow skiing. There's casinos out there, great entertainment options to go out and go snow skiing. And we went one year in the cabin we stayed in, and I think it was listed for sale, and it was listed for, you know, whatever. There was like 20 of us sleeping, and it was a big house. It was like $1.8 million or something like that. The next year, the same cabin was still, or not still for sale, it had sold and it was back on the market, but this time it was on sale for like $3.4 million. And I know the market's been crazy the last couple of years, but that seemed like a big number. I was like, what is going on? Did a little bit of digging and found out that in Lake Tahoe, the local government, the municipality in the area, there were locals that were complaining about all the renters and the tourists, and they didn't want that. So what they did is they went through and they like carved out like 2 or 3 blocks in Lake Tahoe and said, okay, if your home's in this pocket, you can do short-term rentals. Anything outside of this pocket, you're no longer allowed. We're not going to renew your permit, and you can't do short-term rentals. So what happened is the homes that won the lottery and were inside those 4 streets, the value shot up and doubled pretty much overnight. And the properties outside of it, they went from being worth $1.5 million to like $700,000 overnight. So having a local government that is welcoming and encouraging of the tourists coming in and the economy that they bring is critical if you want to get in this game and get in this space here. And I would certainly recommend that to any investors you might advise to get into the space. You can't speak highly enough. But one of the reasons I'm personally in Orange Beach and Gulf Shores is because that's a market that has thrived on, and they understand that their entire economy is based off the tourists that come down there in the summer to see the ocean and use the beach during the summer months. So as a result, they staff up for it. They've got the police department to control that during spring break season and stuff like that. Yes, you pay for it with licensing and things of that nature, but they're very welcoming. They're not going to shut it down overnight. So some of your more traditional areas, Panama City, Daytona Beach, Gulf Shores, stuff like that, I think is really important. You have some of these other hot markets that are emerging that can be fun, but if you don't get the government support, that could really lead to a challenge from an investment standpoint. Thomas, you asked rental company charges to keep it booked. We'll talk more about that here in a minute. I've got some strategies and things I do from a property management standpoint, and we'll break all that down. So, but you know, the first step to get in this game is obviously to choose a market. Once you know kind of what it can rent for, and you're happy that with the location, you know, are you going to use it personally or not? And the extra cost, municipality support. Step two is obviously acquiring the property. With anything in this market, with any real estate market right now, cash is always king. A lot of people that have investment properties, I've got some people I'm working with right now that, you know, bought up and acquired long-term rentals when homes were selling, you know, for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 back in 2010, 2011. And what they're doing is now they're putting all those homes on the market, selling everything like as a portfolio of properties. And then they're using a 1031 exchange to move that investment to properties in the beach or in the mountains, to move it to more short-term rentals, moving from long-term rentals to short-term rentals. So there is cash available. There are people out there that will do that. And let's be honest, from an agent standpoint, it's a little bit more fun to work with investors if they're buying a $500,000 or $700,000 cabin in the mountains versus buying a $150,000 dilapidated ranch, you know, in kind of a rough area of town. From a financing standpoint, what short-term rentals offers, you can always finance these properties or pretty much any property as an investment property, but it also opens up the ability to do what we call a second home loan or a vacation home loan. Generally speaking, second home loans require less money down. So investment property is typically going to be a minimum of 20% down. Second home, you can do it for as little as 10% down. So you don't need near the cash to get into a home, or better yet, the cash you have can essentially double your buying power, right? Because if you have $40,000 to invest in a property, well, that's a $200,000 investment property, but that could be a $400,000 second home, okay? So it increases buying power if we can go to the second home route. There's always going to be the option of looking at traditional loans versus what we call jumbo or non-QM loans. Some of these properties are going to be expensive enough that it's going to be outside of the standard Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac loan limit. Hopefully everybody knows the current conventional loan limit is $647,200. The other thing to know with property acquisition is just some inherent property problems, specifically condominiums. And specifically condominiums on the beach, you can run into some issues just getting those homes financed. If a building has been flagged as what we call a condo hotel or a condotel, you cannot get traditional financing, and the available financing is going to require typically a minimum of 30 or 35% down versus maybe you know, as little as a 10% down second home. So just know that there are some caveats out there, and a good rule of thumb, what I always tell real estate agents is, like, I've got an agent right now, she's sat through this class and been excited about it, and she's ready to make the leap, and she's looking at buying a property in Panama City Beach, Florida. And she found this condo. She's like, man, this is a great deal. All the other condos like this one are selling for $550, and I found this one and it's for sale for $375. I was like, uh-oh. I was like, is it in the same complex? She's like, well, no, it's the complex next door. The complex she was looking in, it had several problems. First of all, it was definitely flagged as a condotel because they offered cleaning services and daily lending changes. It was more of a hotel than a traditional condo or like a residence like we would traditionally think about. The other problem was the HOA itself had mismanaged all of its money and was effectively not bankrupt yet, but pretty close. And people were just trying to get out of it because the building was having, the overall association was having so many financial problems. So, you know, there's obviously a moral of the story. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. But just be aware that, especially in this market, people that are looking, you'll run into more condos than you traditionally would, say, in, you know, Douglasville, Georgia, and condos in and of themselves can be somewhat problematic. Cabins up in the mountains, I've ran into all kinds of goofy scenarios with, oh, this is a cabin that's a fixer-upper, we're going to fix it up, but it doesn't even have running water to it. It's got a well outside that you put like in just an old school rough cabin. I mean, that's not anything we're going to be able to lend on, and certainly not do traditional lending on it. So just know that there's some other property issues to be aware of, but there's lots of financing options, lots of ways to get into this property. The other loan program that I want to talk about real quick, this is the slide about condos and what we have to watch out for. Has anyone heard of, or are you familiar with what we call a DSCR loan? Has anyone heard of that? DSCR stands for debt service coverage ratio. So a debt service coverage ratio loan. That is a new product, it's not a new product, it's been around for a while, but it is new to the short-term rental space, the Airbnb space. A debt service coverage ratio loan is great because a lot of people that want to jump into this game and do this, they're entrepreneurial type people. They typically own a business, own 2 or 3 different businesses, have their hands in a bunch of different things. And they're people who, even though they're good credit risk and can be good clients, have some money available to put money down, they don't a lot of times show all their income or have a lot of documentable income. A DSCR loan is like a tunnel vision loan. So what we do is we look at the specific property that we're buying. So if we're looking at a $500,000 log cabin in the mountains, and the payment's going to be, say, $4,000 a month, but we can show on paper where this cabin will rent out for $6,000 a month, well, then we've way more than offset that payment, right? And that's what a DSCR loan is, debt service coverage ratio. As long as that ratio is 1.0 or better, meaning as long as we can show on paper where we expect this cabin to rent out for $4,000 a month, if your payment's $4,000 a month, then you can qualify for that cabin with a DSCR loan. And we don't look at your tax returns and we don't look at your other income or anything like that. The only income we're interested in is the subject property itself, the subject property income. Okay, so really, really good loan product. It's a great opportunity for people to get into these homes. Like any mortgage product in the world today, the rates on those programs have been going up. So maybe the customers have to put a little bit more money down to get that debt service coverage ratio to work. It just depends. But just know that that's out there. And this is available to investors, even if they're like, oh, well, I don't have the cash to do it and I can't get traditional financing. Well, there may be an opportunity to still get them into a property. So a really good option, good program that's available for people that want to get into the space that otherwise wouldn't be able to qualify. Quick note on second home loans, effective back in April of this year. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are now charging interest rates on second homes similar to investment properties. Historically, second home rates used to be similar to primary residence loans. Not a big deal. It's just, interest rates on a second home now are higher than they used to be. That's effective across the board. That's true whether it's me or any other mortgage company that's doing this. But I've gotten that objection lately, or people that say, oh, well, I don't want to get into this space. I heard the rates for it just went up, some astronomical number. It did get more expensive to finance a second home, but these properties absolutely will still cash flow and it can still be a good investment. So just heads up on that, because that is a pretty common objection, or kind of a common information in the marketplace right now that's not been thoroughly explained or being thoroughly, really thorough. It's not thoroughly understood in the market yet. So, step one, we've picked a market, found a property, found something we're happy with, we think we're good with it. Step two was we've now acquired this property, whether we paid cash for it or we financed the property or we did a DSCR loan or went in with a partner or whatever. Step three, and I have step 3A because the next steps all kind of happen at the same time. But a big piece of getting this property rented out is, of course, advertising. The top websites are Airbnb and VRBO. Okay, so Airbnb and Vrbo, they call it now, or Vacation Rentals by Owner. I kind of look at it, people say, oh, I have a website, but the website doesn't show up on Google. If your website, if you search in Google and you don't show up, you probably don't have a website. If you have a short-term rental and you're not on Airbnb or VRBO, you probably don't have a short-term rental, in my opinion. So definitely getting the properties listed on Airbnb and VRBO are critical. I think both of them have to happen, and they both have to happen as absolutely soon as possible. That is where the lion's share of all of my bookings come from. And it's split. VRBO is the busier website for me during the height of the busy season. During the middle of summer, like right now, the majority of my bookings are through VRBO. Airbnb is the majority of my bookings outside of that busy season. The college spring break season, the fall break season in October, someone booking. You probably hear the train again. It's another clear to close. Wonderful. But the booking during Christmas or Thanksgiving or something like that, the majority of those, for whatever reason, come through Airbnb. But it's critical to be on both of those. So that's kind of step 1 and 2, or really 1 and 1, depending on how you want to call it. Beyond that, I do think it's probably a good idea to have a direct booking website, a place you can send people to look for a property to book that's that doesn't charge all the Airbnb and VRBO fees. I actually have, through my software, I'll kind of show you how I do this. This is going to be a lot easier than it sounds like, but I own Gulf Shores Orange Beach Condo.com. And down here, these are the condos that I have listed and available for rent. So, so that's my direct booking website. And then fourth and finally, it's everything else, because there's lots of websites to list properties on: TripAdvisor, Booking.com, Owner Res. I think down there's like Emerald Coast by Owner. There's all kinds of different websites you can get on. But what I found is the traffic and the bookings that you get from those websites are just pales in comparison. It's just not a big deal when compared to the big two, really. Airbnb and VRBO are critical. I think a direct website is a good idea. Then everything else is just, if you have time and want to deal with it, great. If not, it's probably not a big deal. Obviously, for advertising, as speaking here to a group of agents, you probably would know better than me how to do this, but it's just like a common sense listing, good photos, good professional photos, engaging write-up. And if you have suggestions on my listings, like I said over here, I'm all ears, because I'm always looking to improve my system as well. But yeah, there we go. But try to keep good pictures on here, decent write-up, show people kind of what they're dealing with, stuff like that. So pretty easy for advertising. So we'll move along. In addition to advertising, you've got the property management piece. And I think, who was it before? Thomas. Yeah, you had the question about the percentage or rental company charges or whatever. Professional management companies are going to be all over the place. Up in the mountains in Blue Ridge, LJ area here in Georgia, I've seen management companies charge as much as 35%. Because of all the competition, and you've got your companies like Vacasa and stuff like that are trying to enter that space. I've seen the fees get down as low as 15, maybe even as low as 12% in some of the high traffic beach areas. With that said, I think there's a certain amount of, you get what you pay for. Generally speaking, though, I personally am not a fan of any of the professional management companies out there. Several reasons for that. But the biggest one is that the management companies, I don't really feel like they have the same goal in mind or the same incentives that I do as the owner. And here's what I mean by that. A professional management company, if you get online and check whatever, Vacasa or any of the management companies in Orange Beach, any of the ones I did research on in Gulfport, Mississippi, or up in Blue Ridge, Georgia, they're always pushing occupancy. They're like, oh guys, we all of our units are 100% booked in the summer, or all, like, we'll get you all these bookings or whatever. We book every single day. Well, the way they book every single day, and you've probably ran into this before if you want to go on vacation somewhere, especially on the beach. Most beach vacation rentals in today's world in 2022 still require you to have a 7-day booking where you check in and check out on Saturdays. Saturdays are your turn days. if you think about it, when I was a kid and we would go on vacation to New Smyrna Beach, that's where my family's gone for years and years and years, that made sense because you didn't have the internet back then. And to figure out, you would call the management company, they'd be like, oh, okay, we have this condo for this week, or, we have these 3 condos available for that week in June or July or whatever. And that was the only way to really manage vacancy and what was available, because people would go for vacation for a week and they just set it up to be a Saturday to Saturday stay. Well, now with technologies and calendars and syncing and all that kind of stuff, there's really no reason to do that. And my average stay, even in the summer, I want to say my average stay is probably 3 days, maybe 4 days. But the beauty of that is that I'm able to charge more money per day. A lot of people, they can't pay huge dollar amounts for a full week stay. And a lot of people, they can't take the time off, or it doesn't fit in their schedule, whatever. So being more flexible, I'm a little bit more nimble than the other property management companies doing things the old way. There's property management software you can use. I actually use a program called Hostify, and I'll pull that up here in a second and show you what that looks like. But Hostify is my central hub that all the properties that I own, Hostify manages the calendar. If I get a booking through Airbnb, Hostify is smart enough to go in and block off those days for that property in VRBO. And as a result, I'm able to offer, whatever 3-day minimum stays. As I get closer to the days that aren't booked, we'll offer a 2-day or a 1-day minimum stay. I mean, we'll shrink it down to try to get it booked up. But overall, because I'm able to charge a higher dollar amount per day by being more flexible, I think I make more revenue and do better than I would otherwise do by requiring full week bookings in the summer. The other piece about being a self-management, and like I said, I do self-manage all of mine, is I think it is smart for you or for an investor to always be building a list. I've got a list of cleaners and handymen and contractors and stuff like that in the Gulf Shores, Orange Beach area. And I'm always adding to that list. If I have a bad experience with someone, I'm always taking people off of that list. But that I would say with using Hostify to manage the property, manage the calendars. In addition to that, Hostify, the software that I use, the self-management software that I recommend people use, it also has auto communication set up with guests and with housekeeping. So if I get a booking on one of my condos today, like while I'm sitting here doing this class, I don't have to do anything. Like the guest automatically gets the messages through Airbnb or through VRBO, thanks for booking with us. We're looking forward to hosting you. Here's the dates of your stay. Here's the house rules. The housekeeper automatically gets an email and a text, hey, we got a new booking for this unit, and the checkout date is now whatever, July 5th or whatever it is. And please add to your calendar. It synchronizes everything. And the beauty of the software is you can scale. So the first property that I ever bought, that took some time to set it up and learn the process and learn the system. I didn't even know these softwares existed. As I found out about it and figured it out, adding on properties 2, 3, 4, I actually own 5 short-term rentals, doing the additional properties really hasn't been a challenge or super difficult because the bones of the system are there. It's just a matter of tailoring those messages to that specific property, and then you're basically done. I would say across 5 properties, I probably spend maybe an hour a week managing them. And the majority of that is just responding to messages, people asking, can you recommend a good seafood place or a good, a good breakfast place? And those messages, a lot of times I'm not even the one, I'll see it, but I'm not the one answering. My wife, she gets the same notifications on her phone that I get. And a lot of times she'll respond to it before I have a chance to. So it can be really, really quick. It doesn't require a lot of time once you get it set up. And this Hostify software that I use, it costs me $50 a month for all 5 properties. So way, way, way cheaper than what a professional management company would charge me in these areas. And I feel like we do, if not as good as, pretty close to as good a job, and maybe in some cases for some management companies, even better. So I really like that aspect of it. And you know, we save money that way, and then it's kind of a fun business because it's fun to get these messages from people saying, hey, you know, we had a great time. It was my kid's first time seeing the ocean. We loved it. We hope to come back again in the future or whatever. It's pretty rewarding, and again, I highly recommend the business. So we've talked about, you know, picking the market, acquiring the property, got to get it advertised, got to figure out how we're going to manage it, and then the last big step is figuring out how to price the property. And this is really when I came across what I'm going to show you now. This is really how my short-term rental business went from being, okay, this is fun, this is profitable, to really being quite profitable, like better than I ever thought possible. And guys, I'm going to give you some actual numbers here. Please understand that this is not a flex. I'm not trying to be presumptuous or anything. I just want to show you what is actually available, what numbers are possible. We've kind of showed you that before with the dashboards and stuff like that, but an actual real life example that's going on live right now. I want to show you what is possible to get you excited about it, to get people you talk to excited about it. Like anything in a capitalist society, these opportunities eventually will go away, right? Like eventually, and I've got some ideas for how I think this industry is going to change in the future, but it eventually will change. So please don't take this as a boast or a brag. I just want to show you some of the numbers that are feasible and what's attainable, and then maybe use that to get you excited to get someone in this, or for you to get into it yourself. Also, this will open up, I think this opens up the possibility of what I call rent arbitrage, where you could get into this business without even actually owning the property. Just maybe find something, and we'll talk more about that here in just a minute. So anyway, all right, jumping in here. When it comes to pricing out one of these units, if you think about it, anytime you've ever visited a hotel, you've ever flown on an airline or whatever, we all know that those prices for an airline ticket, for a rental car, for a hotel room, it changes and it's all over the place, okay? And the reason it changes is because of demand. We know that a hotel room near the Braves Stadium on a Friday night, when there's a big baseball game, when the Braves are playing the Yankees, is going to book out for more that evening than a random Tuesday when there's no Braves game, right? Because there's more and less demand depending on what's going on in the area, what's going on around. We should know that at the beach, December 15th, when the kids are still in school, should book out cheaper than December 25th. We know that there's seasonal demand at the beach. There's seasonal demand in the mountains. There's times where people really want to go to the mountains and see the leaves changing color and apple festivals and all kinds of stuff going on. And there's times where, yeah, you might have some people that want to go, but it's just not in season. There's not as much demand. You've got obviously weekends versus weekdays. Weekends are typically going to be more expensive. So how do we figure it out? How do we figure out how to price our unit? Okay. Well, I highly recommend using a dynamic pricing software. The main one that I use is this one right here. It's called Beyond Pricing. And what these websites will tell you, as I've done more research, you do research from Airbnb and stuff like that, they'll tell you that the average person, the majority of bookings for a vacation happen about 30 to 45 days outside of the travel dates. Okay, that's when most people book a place to go. Not everybody, but that's when most people book a place to go. With that said, what that means is you should have, when you're pricing out a unit from a business planning standpoint, you should absolutely have vacancy in the next 30 days on your calendar. And that's another reason I just don't understand these management companies. I know for a fact, I talked to one, they're like, man, we're doing great. We are 100% booked for the entire summer. And I was talking to them like in February. And I'm like, what you're telling me is you're booking it too cheap and you're advertising that as something good for your owners and good for your clients, but they're probably leaving dollars and leaving revenue on the table, okay? Let me show you the Beyond Pricing website, and I just want to kind of show you what's available and how this works. So these are the condos that I have listed. Same pictures should look familiar from before over here. So this is my Orange Beach condo right here. We'll pull up the calendar, and the days here in the bright green, these are actual bookings and the actual number of dollars I've gotten per night for these bookings. The dark green right here, these are days that have not booked yet. You see here, 4th of July weekend, $1,100 a night. You know, you can justify some pretty high purchase prices if you can get that kind of dollar in revenue per night for a condo. Obviously, don't get that every night, because sometimes, you know, as I got closer, the software is smart enough to keep the price high as we're further out. And as we get closer to days that aren't booked, you have 2-day gaps here. These are, you know, quite a bit cheaper, right? It's the same concept again for an airline flight. Everybody that's on that flight from Atlanta to, you know, Orlando, and they not every person paid the same price to be on that airplane that day. Makes sense? But these are some of the bookings that I have on the books. Still have a couple weekends available in July that I expect to book as we get closer. The software is smart enough to reduce my price as we get closer to vacancies to try to grab some bookings and things of that nature. And then obviously as we get down into August and September, don't really have any bookings, but I'm okay with that, because remember, the majority of people are traveling. They're going to be booking 30 days out. So I'm not really close to my window yet of people booking out August and September. I do have a booking here in October that just happened randomly a few days ago. But you get the idea. I've got vacancy in my calendar with opportunities to book. I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with that risk. And I'm happy with some of the prices and the way I've been booked up in June and July during the busy season. So it just gives you an idea of how it works. Inside this software and tools, you can customize all kinds of things, minimum stays and last minute discounts, how much I want to discount the property by, and things of that nature. So you can be pretty specific with what you want the software to do. But the real highlight of the software is they look at events and things coming up and price your unit accordingly. So let me see if I can, I think if I scroll all the way down. So like in May, so this is for May of 2023. If you look here, obviously not bad numbers here. Be happy to book out this condo for $300, $400 a night. But then randomly, bam, this weekend right here, $800 a night, $850. What's going on? Well, I don't know if you can see it on your screen, guys, but see event right here, Hangout Music Festival. There's a big complex down there in Gulf Shores called the Hangout. They do a big music festival the weekend before Memorial Day weekend in May every year. It brings a bunch of people in. They have big, you know, music groups. I think they had Fall Out Boy this year and stuff like that. And obviously with that expected demand, with that spike in demand, I didn't know until last year that there was a Hangout Music Festival, but I didn't have to know. The software knew it, and it priced out my unit accordingly. You see what I mean? So I didn't leave money on the table doing that. Again, as we get closer to those dates, if it doesn't book out, the software is smart enough to reduce my price and get that booking. But right now, if someone wants to book it out and they want to book it out that far in the future, they've got to pay a higher price to lock that in. That's just the way the math of the dynamic pricing works. And I assure you, you've dealt with this before as a consumer, looking at plane tickets and looking at hotel rooms. There's a variable in there. And just like people say, oh, well, the best time to book a plane ticket's the 3 weeks before on the Tuesday, like that will come into play and be more and more part of people booking vacations and booking Airbnbs as more people adopt softwares and tools and stuff like this. But for now, it's a pretty good system. It's definitely a fun little business, and finding this tool and, you know, taking advantage of the dynamic pricing software is what really made my business and my revenue from the short-term rental game really take off. Brad, you said, curious, for beach short-term rentals, do you think 1, 2, or 3 bedrooms are best? To be honest with you, man, it just, I don't know all of my data points, and it's not on purpose. It's just kind of how it's shaken out. Everything that I personally own is a 3-bedroom unit. everything. I mean, and that wasn't on purpose. It's just kind of what the market gave me and what I felt like was a good opportunity at the time. My sister-in-law just bought a 2-bedroom unit. I did stumble across a couple of days ago a 1-bedroom unit that I almost made an offer on because it was, the price was right. And obviously it's not going to have the same revenue, but it's not going to have the same expense either. When it comes to buying on the beach, for me personally, the biggest thing that I look for is the solvency of the HOA. I want to make sure that, if there is damage to the building or storm blows through or whatever, that they're not walking around begging all the owners to pay money before we can secure a contractor. I want them to have cash on hand to be able to do that, and the building itself to be financially sound. If I were to give you an idea, when I was looking at and we're making offers on mountain cabins, because I looked extensively in LJ and in Blue Ridge, and just made offers, never could get the offer accepted. And by the way, Ribbon doesn't do second homes or investment properties, so I couldn't go that route. But with looking for those particular properties, I was more tailoring to like a crowd of people, 2 or 3 families coming down, more like the 5-6 bedroom options that sleep a lot more people. On the beach, I kind of like the idea of a 3-bedroom because during busy season when things are real expensive, you can make it work with 2 families, but during slow season, it's not as expensive and 1 family can swing and foot the bill and be a little bit more spread out than they would be in, say, a 2-bedroom unit. So I like that dynamic. With that said, my sister-in-law that bought the 2-bedroom unit down there, she is killing it. I mean, she's absolutely crushing it. So, and some of that's the fact that the 2-bedroom units do book a little bit cheaper, and because overall they're cheaper than some of the 3 bedrooms, they tend to book up pretty quick and faster. So she's done really well with it. So I wish I had a better answer for you. I'm still getting data on that, trying to figure it out. But I think if you buy right and market right, 1, 2, 3, a buddy of mine, he owns a 6-bedroom beach house in Gulf Shores, and it does phenomenal. He'll do $350,000 in gross rent on that house by itself. So there's lots of opportunities still in this market right now. Maybe if you buy one, you can meet up with me and we can mastermind about it and see what we need to do. So from a flow chart standpoint, just because I get this question a lot, the way it works is Beyond Pricing, the website, that's the one that generates the price. Beyond Pricing talks directly to Hostify, and then Hostify distributes the pricing with the calendar and the availability dates to all the various booking channels. And again, the big 3 are Airbnb, VRBO, and my direct booking website. Like I said, this is a game changer for my business. It helped maximize profit for events I didn't know existed, for demand that I didn't know was there. It also kind of gives me an insight into if I think a particular week or particular weekend should have high demand, the software will tell me, well, no, the market's only 30% booked. So to get a booking for those particular dates, I've got to be a little bit cheaper because you don't have as many people coming to the beach, not quite as much demand. So big deal. So the case study, guys, to give you an idea of kind of what's available and possible, and I haven't updated these numbers in about a year. I need to. I started teaching this class a year ago. It's hard to believe. The first property that I bought, I mentioned, it was that Orange Beach condo. I purchased it for $529,000. The initial cash investment was about $70,000 between down payment and closing costs and inspections and all that kind of stuff. My all-in payment, including HOAs and everything, is $3,200 a month. The utilities run about $150. That's for power and internet. After owning that unit for 1 year, I had $35,000 in the bank account. So it paid all the bills, it did all that. And after a year, I had $35,000 left over. You do the math on that, that's a cash on cash return of 50%. So I'll have all of my initial investment back in the first 2 years of owning that property. What this slide doesn't tell you is this was my first one, and everything that I just showed you, I was learning, okay? So I wasn't using the pricing software. I wasn't using the owner management software. It was taking a lot of time. I was trying to decide if it was worth it. I was trying to figure out how to make it work and be more efficient. And the other thing this number doesn't reflect, if everybody remembers a couple years ago in that Orange Beach, Gulf Shores area, Pensacola, Florida, we had a little storm called Hurricane Sally blow through, and the unit was not available to rent for about 6 weeks. So there was some lost revenue there. Now I did make some money because there you can get insurance for that, and I had an insurance claim to offset some of that lost rental income. However, at the end of the day, it still made money in spite of the fact that I didn't really know what I was doing. And it just goes to show you don't have to do this perfectly to make money. My second condo that I bought, I paid $545 for it. Same thing, after closing costs and all that, is about a $70,000 cash investment because it was more expensive. The all-in payment was a little bit higher. Utilities were very similar. However, in this particular property, after only 3 months, I had $51,000 in that bank account, paying all those bills and doing all that. That property had a cash-on-cash return of about 100%. Now, with rates going up and with home prices going up, I don't think that number is very recreatable right now. It possibly is. You can get a great deal on a property. Someone just wants to get out from under it or whatever. But I do think that this number, the 50% cash on cash return, maybe a 30 to 50%, getting all of your initial investment back in the first, 2 to 3 years, is still very variable, very attainable in the short-term rental space. And it's just a matter of figuring out where you want to be and doing the research and deciding to jump in, or having your buyers or your investors jump in and do this. The last step is obviously to execute on it. You can visit my website, zanderteam.com/STR for short-term rental. And happy to, on that website, you can download this information, the slides, and get on our list. The West Georgia board and Rusty Cole, if you guys know him, they're the ones that pushed me to put this class together. So you can give them thanks for being able to sit through this. Personally, guys, I'm always available for sales meetings, CE classes, lunch and learns, masterminds, stuff like that. So I love discussing this stuff, love bouncing ideas off of people, love getting feedback from people. Everything that you've seen in these slides, the ribbon program, everything, it's 100% from just talking to other people and putting business plans, putting stuff in action, making things happen. The only reason I've done anything at all in real estate is because I've sat down and listened to people, and I love listening to people. Definitely ideas, thoughts, encouragements, warnings, definitely interested in it and want to hear about it. So that's pretty much the end of the STR piece of this. I've got one more thing to cover, and then we'll wrap up the class. Any questions? Anybody maybe a little bit excited or want to jump into this? Maybe. The other thing real quick, and I mentioned this before, but I didn't have an actual slide on it. I talked about the idea of rent arbitrage. So what you can do, and I personally haven't done this. I've almost done it a couple times, but I just haven't bit off this bullet. So you can join all kinds of Facebook groups, Orange Beach and Us, or, Pensacola owners or whatever. You can join those groups. Yes, Jennifer, I lend money out every day on the mortgage side. I'd love to get you a loan so you can borrow some money. That's what we do. There's always occasionally a post with someone saying, hey, can you recommend a management company? Or I'm not happy with my management company, or I'm not happy with this, or whatever. And there absolutely is a market to call that person up and be like, because again, these management companies, guys, after fees and everything, the owner might only be getting, $40,000, $45,000, $50,000 a year in rental income on their beach condo. And again, you got to do some due diligence. This is more than just me making a suggestion and you picking up the phone and doing it. You got to discuss a few things, but there absolutely is an opportunity to get that person on the phone and be like, look, you did $45,000 last year after fees and everything from your management company. How about this? Sign a lease with me and I'll guarantee you 50 grand. You know, I'll pay you whatever 50,000 is divided by 12. So it's $4,000 a month. I'll do it for a year and I will handle renting out your condo. I'll handle it all just like a management company, and everything's my responsibility and you're guaranteed this check. And then the goal or the expectation is that you can rent out the property for, you're only paying, you know, $4 grand a month, but after it's all said and done, you net it out and rent it out for 6 or 7 or 8 grand a month. The rent arbitrage play, the beauty of that is you don't have to get a loan or qualify for a loan or have a big initial cash investment. You're just finding someone who will, you know, play ball with you and do that. And there absolutely are people that do that. There's owners out there that are looking for people to do that. I've thought about trying to set up a whole company to try to find those opportunities and do that. It's just that, like I showed you on the slide before, I'm pretty busy with the mortgage business and what we've got. Something else, and this is more high level stuff. It's stuff I'm more cover when I'm kind of giving this presentation to a group of, say, investors versus like a CE class or kind of a, you know, just dipping your toe in the water with short-term rentals. But there's other benefits to owning a short-term rental. So obviously we've talked about the cash flow. With any piece of real estate, there's always the appreciation. That condo that I bought for $529 a couple of years ago would probably sell for $729 today. So, you know, there's that income stream or that asset in the portfolio, so to speak. The third part, though, that's been huge and could make a huge deal for a lot of investors is the idea of tax savings and tax benefits through something we call a cost segregation analysis. Not sure if anybody in here does commercial real estate or has been in that space much, but cost segs are real common in commercial business. And the idea is that if someone, well, let me break it down for an actual, say like a mountain cabin. The idea is, let's say if we had 2 mountain cabins, identical floor plans beside each other, that it's the same cabin, but cabin A is newly renovated and beautiful and gorgeous, and cabin B is old and beat up and dilapidated and it needs to go through the renovations. Well, cabin A might sell for $500,000, but cabin B will only sell for $300,000. And with a $200,000 renovation, you could make it look like cabin A, all right? Well, if an investor buys cabin B, pays $300,000 for it and spends $200,000 renovating that cabin, the $200,000 that he or she spent is tax deductible. They can write that off on their taxes because it's a cost to buy that, to fix up that cabin. With a cost segregation analysis, an investor who buys cabin A, the $500,000 cabin, they can get the same $200,000 write-off. Because the idea behind a cost seg is, well, I paid $500,000 for it, but $300,000 was the actual property and $200,000 was the fact that it already had a newly renovated kitchen and updated bathrooms and nice hardwoods and nice light fixtures and all that kind of stuff. So by buying that cabin, an investor can take on that year's taxes a $200,000 write-off on the property. And you got to think, someone that's, you know, buying a $500,000 cabin that qualifies for a $500,000 cabin, they probably have pretty good income, pretty good taxable income, and a $200,000 write-off could yield a tax benefit, an actual dollar for dollar tax benefit of, I don't know, 60, 70, maybe $80,000. So it would be worth it. There's an opportunity if you want to be super entrepreneurial and really be motivated. Maybe you partner with an investor who doesn't have time to do this, but needs tax write-offs. And you're like, hey, let's get in the short-term rental business together. I'll manage it. I'll handle it. I'll find the property. I'll make all the income. Maybe we'll split the appreciation when we sell the property 3 years, 4 years, 5 years from now, whatever it is. But in the interim, what you get out of it is you get an asset that's appreciating and you get a $200,000 tax write-off on this year's taxes to save money on your income tax. Are you interested? So there's lots of opportunities, lots of ways to think through this. And like I said, you can be as entrepreneurial and as motivated. You know, it's just a really, really cool space. You can tell probably by hearing it in my voice and stuff like that. I really have enjoyed this business, really like it, and can't recommend it highly enough, especially when compared to other real estate investments like the long-term rental game and property flipping and, you know, land deals and stuff like that that I've advised on and looked at in history. So anyway, just some food for thought there. And then Karen, thank you so much for that comment. Very nice, and I appreciate it. Real quick, guys, to end the class here, because I think every loan officer needs to be talking about this right now. Let's talk briefly about interest rates and the market in general. I've been ending all my CE classes with this information. So what we have right here is this chart right here shows you basically this is the actual interest rate market. When lenders say, oh, well, interest rates adjust, they go up or down a little bit every single day. That's absolutely true, they do. So pulling the chart back here a little bit, when the chart was up here, and if you're not familiar with trading charts and candlestick charts and all that, that's okay. Don't feel like you've got to become an expert in trading. What you really need to know is that when the data and the trading and the prices are up here, interest rates are really, really good. This is probably back when we were quoting, 2.875 or 3% interest rates on 30-year mortgages. All right. As coronavirus finally, has maybe, hopefully we're on the tail end of it, right? Hopefully it's ran its course and we don't have to have another lockdown or anything crazy like that. But as that stabilized and as the economy came back online and more states open up, more people go back to work, all that kind of stuff, obviously the economy's been getting really, really hot. As the economy's been getting and staying really, really hot, inflation has become a problem. And then about the turn of the year this year, so this is right in November, December through here, that's when we really started to see rates start to move and get higher. But the big moves haven't really happened until about March of this year. So March till now, here in June, you see this big space that the trading data goes through. This data right here is a breakdown of why we were quoting, say, 4% interest rates here, and now we're quoting 6% interest rates, maybe 6.5% interest rates down here. This trend right here will not stop until we as a nation, until we as a society get a handle on inflation, okay? It's not the Fed raising rates. It's not like what is driving our market right now is inflation. We had a producer price index number today. It came in at 10%, meaning that producers like a car manufacturing facility that's buying the steel and the rubber and whatever to produce their car, they're paying 10% higher for those materials today than they were at this time last year. Obviously, that price is getting passed on to consumers. That is why we're seeing prices go up. That's why inflation is such a problem. And mortgage bonds don't like inflation because you get a fixed rate of return. It doesn't make sense to invest money in a bond that's going to pay you 4% if your money is losing value at a rate of 7 or 8 or 9% as prices go up. At the end of the day, that's a losing transaction. So what I'm telling people is when you have inflation numbers like we've had, CPI numbers at 8.5%, producer price numbers at 10.5%, the PCE number, that's the one the Fed really likes, it's been 7.8%. Being able to get a mortgage at 5 point anything was a good deal, and we need to jump on it. We're not really predicting interest rates getting lower anytime soon. And even if the Fed steps in and tightens monetary policy to solve the inflation issue that we have, they can't really solve some of the issues because you've got the whole supply chain issues internationally with China shutting down every time somebody sneezes, and there's a little thing going on right now between Russia and Ukraine you've probably heard of, and Russia's a big exporter of oil, so that's causing oil prices to not only go high but stay high, and we don't really see an end in sight in that, unfortunately. So what I'm telling people is, look, home prices themselves, yeah, they've gone up, you're right, but what's really affecting affordability right now is not so much the home price, but the interest rate. And we're not expecting those rates to get a whole lot lower anytime soon. Maybe a year from now, if we've tightened up Fed policy, monetary policy to the point we actually go into a full-blown recession. Rates do tend to go down during recessions, but I mean, that's in the future, and we can always refinance in the future. But I'm recommending people, buy now, buy sooner than later. We don't expect rates and overall home affordability to look a lot better in the next 6 to 9, maybe 12 months. So that's encouragement, not trying to be a bearer of bad news, but it's a reason to tell buyers, look, if you paused, you need to press unpause, because today is worse than it was 3 months ago. And I expect 3 months from now, rates and prices to be higher than they are now. The other chart that I'll show you real quickly before we wrap up the class, and my computer will cooperate here. Where'd it go? Guys, I apologize. I may not be able to show you this. Here we go. So these slides right here, I've got a whole video on this I did called The Cost of Waiting, and kind of trying to show people what we're seeing in this market. So kind of showed you what's going on with the market with interest rates and why we don't plan on that happening or being a big deal. Without going into all the details of this whole presentation, I'll just show you this number right here. I think it's pretty indicative of what's going on, what's been going on in the housing market for a while. So this right here, you can see in general, obviously population in the US has been growing year over year here lately. We build homes for people. Some homes get, burnt down. Some homes get dilapidated, have to get torn down. But in general, the housing starts from 1960 to 2021 have been, fluctuating, but there's been like a general line, like a general trend here, probably come through the middle of this data. Well, back during the Great Recession, when no one could get a mortgage and we had overbuilt homes and, way overdid it here in this space right here, we as a society, as a nation, quit building homes, and it didn't pick right. See, like before, we'd build too many, go down and come right back, maybe build a few more, come down. There was a logic to it. Well, we way overbuilt, and then we way underbuilt for about a decade. I think I saw a number that in the 2010s, from 2010 to 2020, or maybe it's 2009, 2019, that 10-year period, we built as many homes, or I should say as few homes as we did in like 1930 to 1939. It was just astronomically low home building because no one wanted to get in it. Everybody was scared of the space because of what happened. So what we're seeing right now, if you remember before coronavirus ever happened, before we had the lockdowns back in 2020, we were entering which was very much a seller's market, and it was hard for people to get homes under contract. You had agents that would put a home they would list a home, they'd get an offer, and they'd wait and hold out 2 or 3 or 4 days, and bam, we'd have 2 offers, and we'd go to highest and best. You probably remember that if you were in the market then. So we were entering a market where we had more demand than we had supply. Then we've exacerbated that by having artificially low interest rates with Fed policy trying to stave off recession and everything that they did in response to coronavirus and economic shutdowns and things like that. So I tell you all that to show you that the demand. So I've got another slide in here talking about population. Without getting all the details, I can send you the video where we break all these numbers down and explain why we don't expect a housing crash. But the short answer is that first-time home buyers in this market, the average first-time home buyer was born in 1988. And you can see that the population every year goes up for several years after that before it starts to slow down and tail off. And these are all people that are forming families now, having kids, need a place to go. that's what's driven the demand. And even though we've had all this new first-time home buyer demand, we haven't built houses for them in the last decade. So obviously we're trying to build right now, but we can't really build homes efficiently because of supply chain issues, can't get stuff from China in time, can't get this to happen. So what I'm telling people is, yes, is there an opportunity? Are we probably headed for a recession? Well, we're always headed for a recession. It's inevitable that the market will ebb and flow and you'll go, growth, 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 recession, growth, growth, growth. That's just, the system that we live in. So clearly we're headed for one, but historically real estate does really, really well in recessions, with the one exception of the most recent recession that everybody remembers about a decade ago. So I'm trying to, and you can tell I'm an engineer. I love data. I love data points and information like that. But the short answer to all this is there's still plenty of demand in the market. I fully expect home prices to be propped up by that demand. We're not going to continue seeing 15% appreciation. That's not sustainable. We're not going to be in a market again anytime soon where you get 25 offers as soon as the home hits the market. That was never sustainable. That was never going to stay at a thing. But for people who can still qualify with the higher rates, again, we expect rates to continue going up, at least in the initial future, number one. Number two, I don't expect home prices to go down. Maybe it staves off, maybe appreciation kind of flatlines for a little bit, but we don't expect it to go away in its entirety. So anyway, that's my spill I have for you and for your buyers. Hopefully you've got some new tools now, whether it's removing contingencies or using ribbon for buyers. Maybe it's finding a whole new buyer with the investor space and recommending the short-term business plan that they didn't know about or didn't know the opportunity that was there. Maybe a way to explain that and demystify that space for people and for yourself. And then finally, some information here with data. And again, guys, we'll get the information out since we have email addresses with that video where we break down all these slides and show what we actually think the cost of waiting is in this market. But with that said, I will hang on for a little bit and answer any questions. You're welcome to go ahead and hop off if you're done. I appreciate you being here and sitting through the class. I teach a class once a month, so we'll be back. What's this, second Tuesday of the month, I believe. We'll be back here same time. Before you sign off, please put your name, license, contact information so we know you were here for the class, just like we did before. Hope you enjoyed it. Any feedback, always interested. Try to make this, like I said, as interesting as CE can be. It's still continuing education. We're not talking about sports or anything really fun like that, but certainly if you guys have any questions, I'll hang on here and listen. You're certainly welcome to unmute yourself if you want to ask it versus typing it in. Thank you, Ann. I appreciate that. And like I said, I'll hang out here for a little bit. Thank you, Brad. Appreciate it. Hopefully it was helpful. Try to keep it relevant, right? There's no reason to talk about the new CD that we're using for disclosure purposes anymore. We've been doing that a little while. Everybody's got it. Talking about making money is fun. I hope so. I enjoy it. Thank you, Wendy. I appreciate that. Thank you, Sherry. I appreciate that. And again, guys, the slides and all that are available on that link. And we'll get you the link and we'll send all that out as well. But just know that all that information is available. Well, sounds good, Deborah. We'd love to speak with you. And I appreciate that. Thanks, Dalen. I appreciate it. All right, guys, I'm going to another minute or so and I'm going to log off. If you have any questions, just let me know. And again, thanks for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. All right. Hope everyone had a good time. I'm logging off. We've got contact information. If you need anything, just let me know.